World-defying Dan God Chapter 5221, Taurus Mouth. Chen Shang rode a Taurus to a quiet forest. The Taurus could sense danger, and would not take the initiative to approach danger, so this forest was very safe. Let's start practicing here. I should be able to cultivate the scar of absolute beginning soon. Chen Shang also wanted to feel how strong the practice laws bred in this new world of absolute beginning were. Over the years, Chen Shang has been in many rapidly changing environments, so he has long adapted to various changes. And what he has to do now is to abandon his practice rules for many years and embrace the practice rules of this piece of absolute beginning heaven and earth in order to gain the power of this piece of heaven and earth. Although he is very reluctant, he has to do so now. There are many ways to practice the way of the primordial beginning, especially in the initial stage. There are various summaries of experience, and there are a lot of detailed records in the book that village chief Niu gave Chen Shang. So Chen Shang also quickly mastered the practice method. After carefully reading many experience summaries, he sighed, I never thought that the way of the beginning is like this. If I didn't do this, I wouldn't be able to cultivate the marks of the beginning. In the world of absolute beginning, if you want to use the Stargate or something, you must have the scar of absolute beginning. But now what makes Chen Shang very sad is that if he wants to cultivate the scar of absolute beginning, he needs to give up a lot. For example, now, he needs to give up the faith that he has cultivated, and dedicate his faith to the heaven and earth in the beginning. The current world is not a world that can be controlled by individual will. The advantage of this is that it will be very stable and will not be controlled by time monks like before. Chen Shang closed his eyes. He decided to start practicing the way of the beginning. He first sensed the power of the laws of the primordial heaven and earth, and then sincerely offered his destiny. Before he knew it, he felt that his destiny was gradually leaving him. Soon, all fate disappeared. Also at this time, he could feel that he was surrounded by a force of law, which was the law force of the heaven and earth in the beginning. Chen Shang woke up 3 days after he entered the cultivation state. He looked at his palm and found a very small brand mark, which looked like Tianquan starfield. Although fate has left me, I don't seem to feel it disappearing. My fate is accompanied by another form, especially Tianquan fate. Chen Shang tried it, and found that he could still use Tianquan's divine power, and he was very familiar with that special divine power aura. So, I now have the scar of the beginning. Chen Shang looked at the brand mark on his palm. It was the mark of the beginning. It looked the same as the Tianquan starfield. Sister Xiaojing said, Brother, what state are you in now? The Tao of absolute beginning should also have a state. Chen Shang looked at the booklet, and said, I don't even count the absolute beginning realm now. The absolute beginning realm has a total of 36 realms, and it is said that no one in the absolute beginning heaven and earth has been able to cultivate to 36 realms. Of course, it's just what the book says. What criteria are used to classify? Sister Xiaojing asked. Cultivate the scar of the primordial beginning, and then cultivate the divine orb of the primordial, even if it is the first stage of the primordial stage, if it is the second stage. Quote. Chen Shang opened the book and said, the second stage is to cultivate the divine power of the primordial in the body, then use the divine power of absolute beginning to condense or something, and create a second divine rune of absolute beginning on the divine bead of absolute beginning, which is considered the second stage. What about the third layer? Sister Xiaojing asked. The third level is to look at the strength of the divine power of absolute beginning. After cultivating the divine bead of absolute beginning, you can absorb and refine the power of heaven and earth, and then turn it into divine power and store it in the divine bead of absolute beginning. If the divine bead of absolute beginning has a ring of divine, that is 1 weight, 2 laps is double weight, and so on. €. Chen Shang closed his eyes and said, I don't have the divine bead of absolute beginning yet, but after cultivating the divine bead of absolute beginning, there will be a circle of divine patterns of absolute beginning on it. The specific situation will not be known until I cultivate it. He started to practice, absorbing the power of heaven and earth into his body, and then refined it according to the exercises but found that the absorption speed was too slow. The divine mirror of the 6 paths can't assist him to speed up his absorption now. After all, everything has changed in the world in the early days, and what the divine mirror of the 6 paths can do is only play a defensive role. Chen Shang worked very hard to cultivate, but he didn't make any progress after using it for several days. At this time, the Taurus next to him suddenly said, Young man, it won't work if you do this. You don't have the soul of the primordial soul, and it will be very slow to absorb the power of the primordial. Chen Shang looked at the Taurus in surprise, and asked, Brother Niu, how can you talk? We Taurus can talk, but we don't like to communicate with humans very much, because you not only ride us, but also eat us, and usually don't treat us very well, so we don't bother to talk to you. Taurus said. Then why are you talking to me? Chen Shang recalled that before, he had also ridden a golden bull. Because I'm anxious to see it. You are too stupid an ancient remnant, I can't stand it anymore. Taurus laughed and said, that's why I opened my mouth to give you some advice. Old cow, am I really stupid? Chen Shang was a little skeptical about life, he was already considered a character before, and the formation of this world of primordial origin also had a lot to do with him. The combination of his 6 paths ancient star and Tianggu star, as well as the Qing Xing he saved, led to the birth of the ancestral heaven and earth. It doesn't count, after all, you can cultivate the scar of the primordial beginning. The village chief of that village before is an idiot, they don't understand anything. Taurus said, how about this, you worship me as your teacher, and I will teach you everything. You cultivated the divine orb of absolute beginning. Sister Xiaojing asked Chen Shang to agree, after all, masters are teachers, if this golden bull can teach him how to cultivate, it doesn't matter to worship him as a teacher. Master Lao Niu, please be respected by your disciple. Chen Shang also saluted decisively. That's right, those who know the current affairs are brilliant. You don't have the damned arrogance of humans. You also know how to lower your posture. You must have a bright future. Taurus laughed and said, I never thought that I, Lao Niu, could have a human apprentice, it's wonderful. Master, don't trick me, teach me how to cultivate. Chen Shang was also very anxious, he just wanted to become stronger quickly. Don't worry, what's your name? Shall I get one for you? Taurus asked. My name is Chen Shang. After Chen Shang finished speaking, he asked, Master, what's your name? I'm Niu Chao, Taurus said. Master, can I still ride you in the future? Chen Shang only felt that it was a bit wasteful not to ride the cow. You brat, don't try to ride me anymore. I hate 2 things the most. One is that others want to ride me, and the other is that others want to eat me. Niu Chao said very annoyed. So, from now on, you should walk honestly. Bar. Alright, quickly teach me how to cultivate the divine orb of absolute beginning. Chen Shang felt that if he cultivated the divine bead of absolute beginning, he might be able to use the divine power of absolute beginning to make the divine mirror of 6 paths fly. No, World Defying Dan God Chapter 5222, Tao Soul in the Beginning. Chen Shang felt that this Taurus was quite easy to get along with, and his strength was not weak. If he encountered any unexpected situation, with the Taurus at the front, he would be much more relaxed. Master, how long will it take me to cultivate the divine orb of absolute beginning? Chen Shang now only thinks about how to cultivate quickly, and after reaching a certain level, he can be regarded as integrated into this new world of primordial beginning. It depends on your luck. But with my help, it won't last long, at most 3 to 5 years. Niu Chao said. He walked in front, flicking his tail, looking very cheerful. 3 to 5 years. I can't wait. Chen Shang became very anxious when he heard this. There's no need to rush this kind of thing. Niu Chao smiled and said, come on, little disciple, follow my pace, and listen to me while you run with me. Quote. After Niu Chao finished speaking, his speed suddenly increased, and Chen Shang could only speed up and run wildly behind. Master, where are we going now? Chen Shang said, I want to go to the Taichu Academy. What's there to do in the Taichu School Palace? You haven't cultivated the Taichu Divine Orb, so you can't enter that place. You follow me first, and then you can cultivate the absolute beginning Divine Orb. Niu Chao said. Chen Shang had no choice but to continue to follow Niu Chao. On the way, Niu Chao began to talk about the key to cultivating the divine bead of absolute beginning. The first thing is to have the Tao Soul of absolute beginning. Chen Shang didn't have this kind of thing, and neither did Niu Chao, so he could only take Chen Shang to look for it. Most of the Tao Souls of absolute beginning are born with it, but Chen Shang is an ancient survivor, so it is impossible to have it innately, so he can only take him to find those naturally formed Tao Souls of absolute beginning. Niu Chao said that if one finds the Tao Soul of absolute beginning, with good talent and high comprehension, he will be able to cultivate the divine orb of absolute beginning very soon, and it won't take 3 to 5 years. The Tao Soul of absolute beginning naturally bred by heaven and earth is very rare, and even if there is any, it is usually in a very dangerous place. It's not that Niu Chao is unwilling to teach Chen Shang to practice. He also said that if he finds the Tao Soul of Absolute Beginning, he will definitely go all out to help Chen Shang get it. For this, Chen Shang is also quite moved. After all, this master is still responsible. As long as it is a star land, it is not particularly difficult to find the Taoist soul in the early days. Fortunately, I know how to find the Taoist soul in the early days. Niu Chao said with a smile, "Little apprentice, you are lucky if you worship me as a teacher. If you fumble in practice, to ensure that you may not be able to cultivate the divine orb of absolute beginning for thousands of years." "Master, how did you find the Tao soul of absolute beginning?" Chen Shang asked. "The so-called star land is a place with stars, and there is a Taurus star under this place. A place without stars is called a starless land, and it is generally very dangerous and chaotic. I can perceive it by nature. I can sense a very good Tao soul of absolute beginning right now. I hope it's a good thing, and it's best for you." Niu Chao said. "Are there many types of Tao soul in the beginning?" Chen Shang ran behind and asked, "What kind of Tao soul in the beginning is suitable for me?" "I don't know either. When I see the Tao soul of absolute beginning, I will be able to see if it is suitable for you. If it is not suitable, then don't." Niu Chao said. "Isn't the Tao soul very rare in the early days? Can you still pick and choose?" Chen Shang was a little puzzled. "That's because I'm here, so you can pick and choose, because master, I can easily find the Tao soul of absolute beginning." Niu Chao said. Chen Shang didn't know whether it was true or not, so he could only follow along to see. After running for 2 days, Chen Shang followed Niu Chao to a lake. Niu Chao whispered, "Little apprentice, look in the middle of the lake." Chen Shang looked over and could see bubbling in the middle of the lake. He asked, "Is there a Tao soul in the middle?" Niu Chao nodded and said, "There is a crocodile there, and the Tao soul of absolute beginning is guarded by the crocodile. In fact, the Tao soul of absolute beginning has not yet fully grown, so the crocodile has not yet absorbed it." "Is it not good for us to rob others?" Chen Shang asked. "It is not a crocodile in the first place. It is born of heaven and earth, and whoever gets it with his ability will own it." Niu Chao said, "If the crocodile can't keep it, it means that this product is not worthy of possession, isn't it?" After finishing speaking, Niu Chao went into the water and swam over, and told Chen Shang to wait on the shore. "Master, you have to be careful." Chen Shang was suddenly anxious. After all, he couldn't see the crocodiles now, and the beasts here were all very strong, so he couldn't shake them now. After Niu Chao entered the water, there was a lot of movement, but for some reason, the crocodile just didn't move. At this time, Chen Shang also found that the water waves that Niu Chao, the Taurus, rippling in the water were a bit strange. Sister Xiaojing said, "Brother, there is something about this old cow. The water waves released by him swimming in the water are very strange. The crocodile should be made still by the water waves." After Niu Chao swam to the middle of the lake, he seemed to have got something, and then swam back quickly. "Get on my back, let's run," Niu Chao hurriedly shouted after landing. Chen Shang immediately jumped onto Niu Chao's back, and then Niu Chao started to run wildly. The speed of this golden bull running was really incredible. Chen Shang couldn't catch up with him at all, so Niu Chao could only let Chen Shang ride up. "Master, are all of you Taurus that strong? Or is it only you that are so strong?" Chen Shang has now realized that this Taurus is not simple. He remembered that there were many golden bulls in Niu village. "Only I am the strongest. Village chief Niu gave me to you, and I asked him to give it to you." Niu Chao said, "I control his consciousness, and he doesn't even know it." At this time, the roar of crocodiles came from the lake, and Niu Chao had already led Chen Shang to run a long way. Niu Chao came to the side of a mountain, and soon dug out a cave and brought Chen Shang in. "Master, where is the Tao soul in the early days?" Chen Shang asked curiously. Niu Chao spit out a bead from his mouth and said, "Hold it in your hand and have a look." Chen Shang picked it up and looked carefully. There was a cloud of white mist inside the bead, and he didn't know what it was. "I saw the beads emitting a strong light at this time." Niu Chao exclaimed in surprise, "Little apprentice, the Tao soul of absolute beginning is very suitable for you." Chen Shang hurriedly asked, "What kind of absolute beginning Tao soul is this?" "I don't know yet, I have to wait for you to fuse to determine what it is." Niu Chao said, "Fuse quickly." "Yes, I don't seem to have taught you how to fuse." Afterwards, Niu Chao told Chen Shang that the fusion method actually requires the soul to resonate with the Tao soul of absolute beginning, and then allow the Tao soul of absolute beginning to enter the depths of the soul. This is really too simple for Chen Shang. Not long after, he successfully introduced the Tao soul of absolute beginning into the depths of his own soul, and then began to fuse. 2 days later, Chen Shang successfully merged with the Tao soul of absolute beginning, but he still didn't know what attribute it was. Niu Chao investigated carefully, and after a while, he exclaimed, "It's terrible, this primordial Taoist soul has no inherent attributes and forms, which means it can be anything, or did it become like this because it met you?" World Defying Dan God Chapter 5223, The Holy City of Taurus. Chen Shang was very puzzled, and asked, "What doesn't have inherent attributes and forms? Generally speaking, what are the Tao souls of absolute beginning like?" Niu Chao didn't seem to understand what was going on. He shook his head and said, "Under normal circumstances, the Tao soul in the beginning always has a fixed attribute, and most of the attributes are one of the 5 elements, with few exceptions. Then there is the form, for example, wood, some people s primordial souls are flowers, plants and trees, euro." Chen Shang asked, "Then mine isn't one of the 5 elements? Or is my absolute beginning Tao soul all 5 elements?" Niu Chao nodded and said, "It's the Tao soul of the 5 elements. Although I haven't seen it, it exists in the legend. The strange thing about your Tao soul is that it has no form." Recommended. Changing the source app to Chase Books is really easy to use. Download www.wanyuanapp.com here. Everyone can try it soon. Euro. Chen Shang really couldn't see the form of his primordial Tao soul now. It was just a mass of things, located in the depths of his soul. He spread his palms and said, "This is my Tao mark of absolute beginning. Does it have something to do with this? Let me take a look at your Tao mark of absolute beginning. It's so strange, it looks like a star field." Niu Chao looked at Chen Zhang's palm. I have to say that this Niu Chao is quite understanding, and he can actually see that it looks like a star field. That is indeed what the Tianquan star field looks like. "Master, will Tao marks of absolute beginning affect Tao soul of absolute beginning?" Chen Shang asked. "It may have an impact. What's the matter with your Tao mark in the beginning? Why does it look more and more like a star field? If the Tao mark in the beginning is a star, it is incredible. Generally only the royal family among the stars can have it. There may be star marks. And you come directly to a star field." Niu Chao didn't pay much attention to Chen Zhang's Tao marks in the first beginning. He thought that Chen Shang was just an ordinary survivor of the ancient times, and the Tao marks in the absolute beginning were just casual. Niu Chao is very sure that Chen Shang is an ancient remnant, but how could the ancient remnant have a trace of the primordial Tao in the shape of a star field? There were too many puzzles on Chen Shang. Niu Chao couldn't solve them. In fact, when he first met Chen Shang, he felt that Chen Shang was different, so he controlled village chief Niu to let him give himself to Chen Shang. "I didn't expect it to be like this now. Chen Shang is indeed very difficult." Niu Chao said, "Little apprentice, your primordial Tao soul may be the stars. 5 stars mean infinite possibilities." Chen Shang asked, "Then can I start cultivating the divine beat of absolute beginning now?" Niu Chao nodded and said, "Yes, you can, but you need to gather a lot of primordial power. The primordial power in this place is too thin. You need to gather it for at least several years to condense the beads." Chen Shang is an alchemist. Of course he also knows that the power of primordial is so thin that it is really difficult to condense it into beads. "I can only go to the holy city of Jinyu, try your luck in it, and see if you can get some magic pills or something." Niu Chao said, "I will cut off 2 horns at that time, and I should be able to exchange you for 2 magic pills." Dan. "Master, you are so kind to me. By the way, are your horns very precious?" Chen Shang looked at Niu Chao's 2 big golden horns, which looked very beautiful and mighty. "Of course my ox horns are expensive, and they can grow in about a few years, and they are also an important medicine for alchemy, and they are also excellent materials for refining weapons." Niu Chao sighed. "Who made you my little apprentice? Of course master will help you." Chen Shang was quite moved. This cheap master wanted to sell horns to help him. It was considered very responsible. Chen Shang said, "Master, I know how to make alchemy. Before the heaven and earth were formed in the early days, I was a very powerful alchemist." Niu Chao said, "Little apprentice, the way of alchemy in the world in the early days is completely different from yours. The alchemy technique of your time will not work here. You used to be a very good alchemist. How good is it? €. Chen Shang thinks that alchemy is not bad, he said with a smile. I was able to refine powerful stars back then, and even create star fields. Niu Chao smiled and said, little apprentice, you can really brag. Chen Shang curled his lips and said, forget it if you don't believe me. Of course Niu Chao didn't believe it. He took Chen Shang to the Golden Bull Holy City. On the way, they saw some people one after another. When those people saw Niu Chao, the Golden Bull, they all looked at Chen Shang with envy. Owning a Taurus may seem like a big deal in this place. Chen Shang also knows now that the previous village that raised gold bulls was very powerful, and it raised a large group of powerful gold bulls, but those people are also local stars, protected by the star of gold bulls, they don't need to practice or anything, they are almost living in isolation. Chen Shang followed Niu Chao, walked for several days, and finally came to the holy city of Jinyu. After entering the city, he found that there were many beasts wandering around in the city, and no one followed them. Only later did he know that those beasts, like Niu Chao, can speak directly and are also independent. Although they cannot transform into human form, they have their own thoughts and are very powerful. These beasts are here and can live in harmony with humans. Even the larger ones, such as the giant rhino that is as huge as a hut, can move around in the city. The holy city of the Golden Bull is very large, and the streets are very spacious. Although the houses are relatively simple stone houses, there are a large number of beasts walking around, which makes the whole city very shocking. If the beasts live in the hotel, they can only live in that kind of yard, and they all have their own yard. Master, beasts and humans coexist peacefully. Will they fight in secret? Chen Shang asked curiously. Of course there will be. Beasts will also fight with each other, but in the city, everyone will be very honest. Niu Chao said. He is now leading Chen Shang to walk on the street. Golden bulls like him are more common in the holy city of Golden Bulls, and there are many types of bulls and beasts. Chen Shang thinks that this may be the way of the beginning, and all living beings coexist harmoniously in the beginning, which is indeed not bad. Little disciple, you cut off my horns and take them to the Taichu Academy in exchange for 2 pills of the Pearl of Beads. Niu Chao said. Master, will this affect you in any way? Chen Shang asked. It will definitely have an impact in the short term. The horn is my weapon, and it is also where I store the divine power of the beginning. Of course, I also have the divine orb of the beginning in my body to store the divine power, but with the horns, I will be stronger. Niu Chao said. As long as we hide in the city and don't go out, there is generally no danger. Chen Shang shook his head and said, forget it. Let's find another way. I said that I can make alchemy, so let's find a way to get some medicinal materials. Master, just trust me once, let me try. Niu Chao couldn't say no to Chen Shang, and he also knew that Chen Shang didn't want to consume his horns, so he could only agree, saying, let's go outside the Taichu Academy first, there are many shops near the Taichu Academy, just buy medicinal materials at those places gone. Chen Shang originally wanted to go to the Academy of Absolute Beginning, because in the Academy of Absolute Beginning he could learn a lot about the Tao of Absolute Beginning. Chen Shang asked, Master, do you think we can enter the Taichu Academy? How can we join the Taichu Academy? World Defying Dan God Chapter 5224, Taichu Academy. Hearing Chen Zhang's question, Niu Chao asked in confusion, why did you join the Taichu Academy? Join the Taichu Academy and work as a tool inside. Isn't the Taichu Academy a sect or something? Chen Shang asked. I thought that joining the Taichu Academy would give you a lot of convenience. Because the village head Niu said that he wanted to learn more and more profound ways of the absolute beginning knowledge, you can only join the Taichu Academy. Niu Chao said. That's not bad, but when a man joins the Taichu Academy, he is a real beast, specialized in hard work. Chen Shang was puzzled, and asked, why? Niu Chao said with a smile, women are in power in Taichu School Palace. After men enter, they will never reach the highest level. Although men can get some skills and inheritance, after becoming stronger, they also need to be bulls and horses to pay back. Quote. Is it because of Empress Qingxing? So the Taichu Academy is dominated by women. Chen Shang suddenly remembered this matter. Isn't it? All Taichu Academy palaces listen to Empress Qingxing. Moreover, the palace masters and elder palace ladies of Taichu Academy Palace are not only powerful, but also very strict with men. That's why men enter Taichu Academy Palace, that is the real cow and horse. Niu Chao shook his head. Master, Did the Absolute Beginning Academy master a lot of methods of the Absolute Beginning Tao? Chen Shang asked. If it wasn't so, it would definitely not be able to attract so many people to work for them. It's natural. The way of refining alchemy and making talismans is all passed down from Taichu Academy. Niu Chao nodded and said, "You'd better not join, just follow me. I can go and find out first." Chen Shang smiled and said, "Master, what do you think of my appearance?" "Your appearance? Very ordinary." Niu Chao asked, "Why do you ask this?" Chen Shang curled his lips and said, "Am I really ordinary?" He said, then took out the mirror and looked at it, and said, "I think I am very handsome. My face is very special. It has a special attraction for certain women. My handsome face has been through the ages. What has been polished, the Tao has naturally been honed through thousands of tempers." Niu Chao kicked Chen Shang hard with his hind legs, and scolded with a smile, "Don't dream, silly boy, go to the vicinity of the Taichu Academy to buy medicinal materials. Do you want me to urinate and take pictures for you, Lao Niu? To seduce the beauty of the Taichu Academy, you don't even know how to spell it. Euro. Are the masters and elders of Taichu Academy Palace all beauties?" Chen Shang asked. "Of course. And the beauty is different, you will know it when you see it. But you better not have any bad thoughts, because they can read people's hearts. If you have dirty thoughts about them, the consequences will be very serious." Niu Chao said. Chen Shang followed Niu Chao for a long time, and finally arrived near the Taichu Academy in the holy city of Jinyu. The Taichu Academy Palace is located in a large area on the edge of the holy city of Jinyu. The shape of the entire Taichu Academy Palace is also very simple. From the outside, it looks like a light blue star falling on the ground. That star is very big, occupying a large area, and there should be a hole in the interior, but ordinary people can't enter the interior. Even if you join the Taichu Academy Palace and become a horse, you can only move outside the Star Palace of the Taichu Academy Palace, you can't enter that of the Star Palace. Chen Shang followed Niu Chao to wander around the shops near Taichu Academy Palace, looking for cheap medicinal materials. But after searching around for a long time, they couldn't find it. There were medicinal materials, but they were all very expensive. Both Niu Chao and Chen Shang were poor and couldn't afford them. To trade in this place, a thing called the Star Crystal of Absolute Beginning is used. After the crystals in the core of the stars are exploded, they can be turned into individual crystals after being processed by the Taichu Academy, and then circulated in the market as transactions. Taichu Shuigong will also produce some star crystal tickets as currency for large transactions. In short, it is the Taichu school that controls the currency of the entire Taichu world, so the status of the Taichu school is very holy and powerful, and no force has ever dared to provoke the Taichu school. In the eyes of the living beings in the world of Absolute Beginning, the Absolute Beginning Academy is the embodiment of the way of Absolute Beginning. All the medicinal materials add up, and a total of 80,000 star crystals are needed. I sell ox horns for 80,000 star crystals. Damn, how did the price of medicinal materials rise so fast? Niu Chao cursed all the way, because even if he sold the horns, he couldn't get 2 pills of Wazhu Shendan. In the past, a grain of Wazhu Shendan was also 80,000 star crystals, and Niu Chao could sell 80,000 for a horn. And now the price of Wazhu Shendan has risen to 200,000. Niu Chao sells 2 horns. If the bid is high, it is possible to sell 2 horns for 200,000, and then only enough to buy 1 pill. Give Shen Shang the pearl of beads. Master, what were the prices of those medicinal materials before? Chen Shang asked. It used to be about 20,000 to 30,000 star crystals per share. But the medicinal materials are bought by others and directly boiled for drinking. No one has ever bought them for alchemy. Although the alchemy formula is made public by Taichu Shuigong, alchemy is really too difficult. Niu Chao is very distressed now. What factors determine this price? Is it Taichu Shuigong? The price of Taichu Shuigong is too outrageous. It used to be 80,000 pills, but now it's 200,000 pills. Chen Shang shook his head. The Taichu Academy is only responsible for purchasing medicinal materials from the market, and then taking them back to make alchemy to make a profit. Although the Taichu Academy also grows medicinal materials, it will not grow too many. It should be caused by the shortage of medicinal materials during this time, or a certain force has taken control of the medicinal materials, Niu Chao said. Does the Taichu Academy not care about this kind of thing? Chen Shang felt that this had already caused great harm to the practitioners. The Taichu Academy doesn't care, because the Taichu Academy also has their own rules, and they won't intervene in some things, such as the cultivation of medicinal materials and price increases. From the perspective of the Taichu Academy, they are natural laws and they don't care. Niu Chao said. Chen Shang has dealt with pills for so many years, and he knows very well that if he controls the medicinal materials, he will definitely be able to control the price and make a lot of money by raising the price. Niu Chao sighed, thinking that he could only sell the scales. He took off the scales from his body, and there was still a cowhide. Chen Shang was resolutely unwilling, so he could only hang out with Niu Chao in the holy city of Jinyu to investigate the real reason for the increase in medicinal materials. After 3 days of investigation, they also roughly figured out the situation. The medicinal materials in the entire Jinyu holy city were indeed controlled, and it was controlled by 3 major forces. Of these 3 big forces, 2 are the Star Force, and the other is the Star Demon Force, and they jointly raise the price of medicinal materials. Chen Shang said, "Master, we have to break this situation." "Well, I haven't done this kind of thing for a long time, now I'm going to go back to my old business, and fight them hard." "Silly boy, what are you talking about? That's 2 big star people and a big Star Demon Force. These 3 forces are the strongest in the Taurus continent. Are you fighting with them? No one will look straight at you." Niu Chao only felt that Chen Zhang's brain was flooded, and he was suddenly talking nonsense. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5225, Danshan's Self-Confidence. "Master, does the holy city of Taurus respect the rules?" Chen Shang asked. "You said, if we do things in an upright manner, then the 3 parties will use disgraceful means to suppress us, and Taichu Shuigong will not care about it." Niu Chao said. "Well, the 3 parties are all star people, Star Demon Forces, and they definitely dare not conflict with Taichu Academy, because their exercises, pill formulas, and methods of planting magic medicine are all from Taichu Academy. Supply." Chen Shang said. "The purpose of the Taichu School Palace is definitely to hope that all the creatures in the Taichu heaven and earth can practice the way of the Taichu and grow up. Now the pills in the holy city of Jinyu are controlled by the 3 forces, and the Taichu School Palace is also because they established it themselves. €'s not easy to interfere. If I can lower the price of the elixir, Taichu Shuigong might secretly support us. €. Niu Chao said. "That's good, but how do you lower the price of the elixir? You need a lot of elixir to sell at a very low price to lower the price. If you have so many elixir, are you willing to sell it at a low price? Why are you reluctant?" Chen Shang laughed and said, "As long as I sell more, I'll earn the same. And we can also make a name for ourselves. When cultivators need cheap pills the most, we provide them, and everyone will remember us. They will always prioritize us in the future, won't they? €. Little apprentice, are you dreaming? Where did we get a lot of pills? And there are only a few alchemists. Even if you know how to make alchemy, how can you do it by yourself?" Niu Chao shook the bull's head again and again, only thinking that his little apprentice was whimsical and hopeless. Normally speaking, it is only natural for Niu Chao to question Chen Shang so much. It is very difficult for alchemists to make alchemy. If they want to lower the price of divine pills, they need to provide a large amount of divine pills. How can there be so many divine pills? In the past, it might be possible to control the acceleration of time or something, but now the time is very stable, and it is impossible to control time. It is true that Chen Shang cannot use the time formation through the divine mirror of 6 paths, but he still has a way. Chen Shang smiled slightly, and said, "Master, do you know what my name was back then?" Niu Chao said, "Little apprentice, stop bragging, okay? If you keep bragging, I will be blown up by you." "Well, did you have a famous name in ancient times?" "I am the alchemy god of Aoshi. At the beginning, I made an Aoshi universe by alchemy, and now this Aoshi universe is still there, but it exists in another form in the world of absolute beginning. When I find it later, you will know that I have it." "How amazing. Chen Shang can't contact Tianshuan Starfield and Aoshi universe now, but he can feel Aoshi universe. He has a special connection with Shen Yuanxin which can transcend time and space. Although unable to communicate, they can sense each other's presence. Hey, little apprentice, your brain is broken, it's all the master's fault, you shouldn't be brought to this kind of place, you must have inhaled the stinky farts of some star beasts, which led to hallucinations, it should be this way." Niu Chao shook his head and sighed. Niu Chao didn't believe a word of what Chen Shang said now. Let's go to the Taichu Academy." Chen Shang had already thought about what to do, and then walked towards the Taichu Academy. You want to join the Taichu Academy as a cow and horse? Don't go. Niu Chao hurried forward, biting Chen Zhang's clothes. Of course not, I want to be an alchemist in Taichu Academy. Chen Shang smiled and said, now Taichu Academy can't control the price of divine pills. I guess the alchemists in Taichu Academy were poached by those three forces. They are definitely short of alchemists now. Little disciple, do you really know how to refine the divine pills of the aboriginal world? You are an ancient remnant, and your ancient remnant's divine pills are completely different from the current aboriginal heaven and earth pills. You have never refined the aboriginal heaven and earth pills. Shen Dan, are you so confident? At least practice your hands. Niu Chao still cared about his apprentice, and hoped that Chen Shang could practice his hands first. For practicing, you need a lot of magic medicine, you need star crystals. If you go directly to the Taichu Academy, they will definitely give me a try of the magic medicine, so you don't need star crystals, understand? Chen Shang laughed. However, you don't have an alchemist certificate. You need to go to the assessment to get it, and the Taichu Academy is responsible for the assessment, and the assessment also requires a sum of star crystals. Niu Chao said, so let's go to the assessment honestly. Go to the Taichu Academy first to find their person in charge, and there will be a solution when you get there. Chen Shang is very confident in his alchemy skills. Although he has never been in contact with the alchemy of the aboriginal world was born after him. He must be very familiar with the alchemy rules. Maybe the alchemy rules are still based on his alchemy, derived from the technique. Niu Chao said that the alchemy in Taichu heaven and earth is very difficult. If the alchemy rules are derived based on Chen Zhang's alchemy, then it is really difficult for Taichu heaven and earth, which is only 10,000 to 20,000 years old, to understand his alchemy. I don't know how long it will take to learn something. Niu Chao had no choice but to take Chen Shang into the Alchemy Hall of Taichu Academy. The Alchemy Hall of Taichu School Palace also occupies several floors in that huge star-like building, which is a very important floor, so there are many strong people. When Chen Shang came to the first floor of the Alchemy Hall, he saw various divine pills placed in the counter where the enchantment was arranged. This was his first close contact with divine pills, and he could tell at a glance how these divine pills were made, which was entirely based on his various alchemy techniques. Of course, this is not achieved by the art of heavenly alchemy, only he can understand the art of heavenly alchemy. The alchemy for refining these alchemy is a set of relatively easy to understand alchemy created by Chen Shang. He has spread it before, mainly to Su Meiyao and Hua Shangyu, these alchemy women, and the Aoshi temple has also received it. Set alchemy. This set of alchemy is mainly circulated in the Aoshi universe, but now it can appear in the world of absolute beginning, which shows that the Aoshi universe should have played a lot of role. Chen Shang looked at the divine elixir that was put out, frowned and shook his head, because the quality was very poor and the refining technique was very clumsy. Little apprentice, what's the matter? Niu Chao asked in a low voice. It's nothing, the pills displayed are not of high quality. Chen Shang said in a low voice, let's ask the person in charge here. Niu Chao was only worried that Chen Shang would cause trouble here, but since he had already come, he could only take Chen Shang with him. Niu Chao pretended that he wanted to sell the horns, saying that he wanted to meet the big shots in Dantang so that he could negotiate a price. The horns of a golden bull like Niu Chao are quite valuable. If he voluntarily sells them, he will usually give him a good price and attach great importance to his conditions. Not long after, an old woman came. She was the treasurer of the alchemy hall, and she was also an alchemist. Old lady, don't you have the art of retaining face? Chen Shang asked curiously. Are you an ancient remnant who just woke up? Absolutely early heaven and earth doesn't have any beauty retaining skills, and you will age with time soon. The time of absolute beginning heaven and earth is a very powerful pig-killing knife. The old woman laughed. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5226, Old and New Alchemy. What pig-killing knife? Although Niu Chao is not a pig, he is a cow. In his eyes, killing a pig is similar to killing a cow. The butcher's knife of time, haha. This little brother looks young and handsome, but it won't be long before his face will be as old as bark. Ida Euro S all floating clouds. There can a Euro T be such a heaven-defying thing in the heaven and earth in the early days. Ida Euro S a natural law that life has been washed and worn out by the years. A Euro. Chen Shang didn't take it seriously, and said, there is always a way. We practitioners are going against the sky, so what's wrong with fighting against the laws of nature? If we go with the flow, then stop practicing and do nothing, just like savages same, resigned to fate. A euro. The old lady just smiled, and then said, I am shopkeeper and, you can call me Granny in charge of the Alchemy Hall of Taichu Academy in the holy city of Taurus. Is this little Taurus going to sell its own horns? What little golden cow? Granny I'm this kid's master, I'm a big cow. Niu Chao's voice sounded like a young man, and he was indeed an adult. Hey, little Taurus, tell Granny how old are you? If you sell horns, you have to estimate the price according to your age. Do you think you can fool me? Granny said with a smile. I am 16 years old. Can't I accept apprentices at the age of 16? And now I have to sell the horns to him in exchange for the elixir to cultivate the divine orb of absolute beginning. Am I a very conscientious master? Niu Chao shouted. Chen Shang was a little confused. He thought that Niu Chao was at least several hundred years old, but he didn't expect that he was only a 16-year-old calf. But why does he always look old-fashioned? Granny laughed loudly and said, all right, you're a very powerful little Taurus. You actually accepted an ancient remnant as a disciple. This ancient remnant, that's a real old guy. I think he must be at least tens of thousands of years old. You have to know that people in ancient times were young if they were thousands of years old, but their strength to live for tens of thousands of years is just that. To be honest, Chen Shang didn't know how old he was, because he often used the time formation technique, and also experienced various time travel training, and had been asleep for many years, and was sealed. As time passed, he didn't care much about his age. After all, he was used to it. Niu Chao said, the master is the teacher. Although he is an old guy, I can teach him how to practice, so it is normal for me to be his master, and he recognizes me very much. Niu Chao is a little worried now. After his age is exposed, he can't hold Chen Shang down anymore. After all, he is really a little golden ox now. Before he was pretending to be an old man in front of Chen Shang, how can he pretend in the future? Granny shook her head and smiled. Okay, you're amazing. How are you going to sell your little ox horns? You profiteer, you have been calling me little golden bull, and now you are calling me little Niu Jiao. You just want to lower the price. I understand the thoughts of profiteers like you very well. Niu Chao snorted. You bid first. Let me see how about your sincerity. In fact, Niu Chao didn't know the current price too well, he just wanted to raise it a bit based on other people's bids. Granny said, 100,000 star crystals and one horn. Niu Chao said, I'll sell you two for 250,000 yuan, how about it? Granny nodded and said, deal. Chen Shang hurriedly shouted, wait, don't sell it. Niu Chao said in a low voice, little disciple, let me sell it first. My horns can still grow back. If I sell it now, I can resell it when it grows back. They are almost grown now. If I don't sell them, they will be rotten. Over my head. In Niu Chao's eyes, his horns are like overripe fruit, which he has to pick off when it's time to pick them off. Grandma to be honest, I used to be an alchemist back then. I just wanted to try to see if I can still make alchemy. Chen Shang said, and the master doesn't really believe me. He insisted on selling ox horns to buy alchemy gang me, but the price of my elixir has risen too much now. I think the price is inappropriate, so I don't want him to buy the elixir. Granny Ann's eyes lit up, and she said with a smile, I can't tell, you are actually an alchemist when the ancient survivors were. I have seen many ancient survivors, but there are very few alchemists. In ancient times, alchemy seemed to be more important than it's much easier now, but there are still very few alchemists, so you still have some value. Chen Shang said, can you let me have a try? Just use the lowest level medicinal materials to make alchemy. Granny Ann said, first of all, you need flames. You haven't cultivated the divine orb of absolute beginning. Let me see if your flames work. Chen Zhang's flames back then were super powerful. Of course, it is said in Taichu heaven that he can release flames, but it is hard to say whether he can burn the medicinal materials of Taichu Tiandi. He spread out his palms, and then circulated the divine power in his body, condensing a ball of flame and releasing it. To be honest, he thought it was already very strong, but when Niu Chao saw it, he shook his head again and said, this flame, the fire lit by a newborn calf's fart is stronger than yours. Granny Ann shook her head and smiled. Little Taurus is right, your flame is too weak, it can't even ignite the lowest grade medicinal materials. Chen Shang was shocked when he heard these words, his own flame was so weak in the world of aboriginality. This also shows that the medicinal materials bred in the absolute beginning heaven and earth are very powerful, and the absolute beginning divine power contained inside is also extremely strong. Chen Shang thought for a while, and then said, "My soul power is not weak, maybe I can use the power of soul to control the outer fire to make alchemy." Granian frowned and said, "I've never heard of controlling external fire to make alchemy." "What kind of external fire?" "It's the natural fire of your primordial world, the kind of flame that can burn medicinal materials." Chen Shang said, "There is always such a flame in the world, right?" Niu Chao said, "The holy city of Jinyu has it. It's called earth fire. It comes out of the ground. It can be used to forge weapons and so on. It can also be used to burn medicinal materials, but that kind of flame is not suitable for alchemy, right?" Granian nodded and said, "It's really not suitable, it's too violent, and there are too many impurities in the ground fire, which can instantly ignite and dissipate the medicinal power inside the medicinal materials. The powder ash of the medicinal materials after being burned by the ground fire also carries a lot of ground fire impurity in the fire." "I can try," Chen Shang said. "Grandma N, you are very short of alchemists now, you shouldn't miss any chance to recruit alchemists, right?" "Okay, I'll let you try it. I also want to see how the alchemists of the ancient survivors are different from the alchemists of the Taichu world." Granian said with a smile, "Let me help you pay for the medicinal materials and give you 3 chances. If you fail, you fail." "Okay, by the way, Grandma N, do you think that if the alchemists of the ancient survivors can make alchemy, they can compare with the alchemists of the world of the beginning?" Chen Shang asked. "It's incomparable. The alchemists in Taichu heaven and earth mastered the alchemy techniques bestowed by Taichu heaven and earth. The alchemy techniques of the ancient survivors were conceived in their very ancient world. They are outdated and backward, and they must be inferior to us." Granian said. Granian is the alchemist of Taichu heaven and earth, so she naturally doesn't look down on things from the ancient times. In her eyes, if the ancient world was really powerful, it wouldn't be wiped out by Taichu heaven and earth. Do you like this site? Donate here. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5227, Ancient Fun. Niu Chao also looked helplessly at Chen Shang. In his opinion, Granian was willing to give Chen Shang a try, but she just wanted to see how backward the alchemy skills of alchemists in ancient times were. Even if Chen Shang couldn't condense the divine fire of the heaven and earth in the early days, Granian still had the mentality of watching the fun. Chen Shang and Niu Chao followed Granian and went to the alchemy room. Chen Shang also didn't know why the alchemists of the absolute beginning heaven and earth looked down on the alchemists of the ancient times so much, maybe it was because they had never been in contact with them. "Grandma N, have you come into contact with alchemists in ancient times?" Chen Shang asked. "I only have contact with you. But our Taichu Academy is in other places, and we have contacted alchemists in ancient times. That's it. Compared with the alchemists in our Taichu Academy, the level is too far behind. Most of them have no alchemy." Granian said. "The alchemists in ancient times were not very good." "Grandma N, you are willing to give my little apprentice a chance, is it for the publication of recorded materials?" Niu Chao suddenly thought of this possibility. "That's right. There are still too few alchemists in the ancient times. Since I have met them, I must study them carefully and record them. We are too early to learn the palace, and we are here to spread knowledge. This can be regarded as a kind of historical knowledge." Grandma N laughed. "Grandma N, if I am good at alchemy, I will not cooperate with you in writing any materials, because my alchemy is not to be passed on to the outside world, I will keep it completely secret." Chen Shang said with a smile. "If you want to laugh at me, if you want to write history, you will be disappointed." Granian shook her head and smiled. "Senior, what's your name? How do you call it?" Granian called Chen Shang Senior because she knew that Chen Shang was very old. Chen Shang said, "My name is Chen Shang, have you heard of my name?" Behind Taichu Academy Palace is Queen Qingxing, so Chen Shang wants to make sure whether Qingxing has put things about him into the records of Taichu Academy Palace. Granian didn't respond when she heard Chen Zhang's name, and Chen Shang was quite disappointed in his heart. He was very famous back then, and was the #1 enemy of the Temple of Time and the Temple of Heaven and Man, but now he has become an unknown person. The Protoss is also very familiar with him. The biggest forces of the 3 parties don't know what's going on now, but they certainly won't just stay silent like this. "Senior Shen, how old are you this year?" Granian asked. You are an ancient remnant, at least 20,000 years old. In the beginning, the heaven and earth were only born for more than 20,000 years. I don't remember how old I was, because back then I was able to reverse the time in a small area, and I could speed up or slow down time at will. I often practiced in the big time formation, and I was once sealed for 100,000 years. Chen Shang said. What, my little apprentice, you were sealed for 100,000 years? How did you live in those days? This is too hard, Niu Chao asked in shock. Granian also looked at Chen Shang in surprise, and said, most of the ancient survivors we met before were tens of thousands of years old, but you have been sealed for 100,000 years. In other words, you are older than the ones we met. Most of the ancient survivors are much older. Chen Shang smiled wryly and said, I have experienced many eras. It can be said that I have experienced vicissitudes, but because I look young, many people will think that I am a young man. Niu Chao muttered, I think you are bragging. How can anyone live so long? Don't you get tired of living so long? Chen Shang could only smile wryly, because Niu Chao had only lived for more than 10 years, so he definitely couldn't imagine how he survived such a long time, and what he had experienced. Granian said, Senior Shen, can you tell us about what happened in Tianghu Purgatory before? We are very interested in this period of history. Chen Shang said, it's a long story. But having said that, I only entered Tianghu Purgatory later on. I was not in Tianghu Purgatory before, but I have experienced all the great changes in Tianghu Purgatory. At this time, Granian was like a scholar. She became even more curious about this, and said in surprise, you entered the Tianghu Purgatory from another place. What place is that? Chen Shang said, the Aoshi universe. On the side of the Aoshi universe, there are also big and small different heavens. In short, they are all the time and space of the universe that appeared under the chaos of time. The Aoshi universe should also be in the world of absolute beginning now, and it may be transformed into a star field hidden in the universe. In the depths of the starry sky. This is something Granian has never heard of, because most of the ancient survivors they have come into contact with in the Taichu Academy are from the ancient purgatory, and Chen Shang is very special, he is from outside the ancient purgatory. Niu Chao remembered that Chen Shang said that he had created the world-defying universe before, so Niu Chao only felt that Chen Shang was bragging. Granian smiled and said, Senior Shen, whether you succeed in alchemy or not, you can stay here for a while, and I will treat you well. Granian just wanted to record Chen Zhang's experience, and then integrate the history of Tianghu Purgatory, as well as things other than Tianghu Purgatory. Chen Shang nodded and said, okay. Niu Chao was secretly surprised, but he didn't expect that bragging would be beneficial. While chatting, Chen Shang had followed Granian to another floor and entered the alchemy room. Granian said, you need earth fire, I have ordered someone to send an earth fire bead over. As she said that, she pointed to a half-person high alchemy furnace in the middle of the alchemy room. This alchemy furnace was shining with golden light, and she knew it was a very precious alchemy furnace at a glance. Niu Chao was very knowledgeable, and exclaimed, this pill furnace is very expensive, right? Is it a royal artifact? Granian said with a smile, it's not a king rank yet, it's just a top rank artifact. It's only a short step away from becoming a king rank. Chen Shang also took a look at this alchemy stove, it was indeed very good, but he thought it was far inferior to his own world-defying god stove. Niu Chao said before that the more common artifacts in the Taichu world are divided into 3 grades, upper, middle and lower. Then there is Wangpin Emperorpin Tianpin, which is rare. Especially the heavenly artifacts, only those born naturally from the heaven and earth in the beginning of time are considered heavenly artifacts. Chen Shang now also knows what level the top-grade artifacts of the absolute beginning heaven and earth are, and they are even worse than the artifacts in his hands. He thinks that the Mirror of the 6 Paths is at least an imperial artifact, and that the 4 Elephants Divine Weapon and the Immortal War Profound Demon Pagoda should all be considered holy artifacts. The Aoshi Divine Furnace is of the same level as the Divine Mirror of the 6 Paths, so it should be regarded as an imperial grade, or even a heavenly grade. Can I use my own pill furnace? Chen Shang asked. Little apprentice, how can your alchemy furnace be comparable to this high-grade artifact? This is the top-grade artifact of the Taichu Academy, which is close to the King Grade 1, especially this kind of alchemy stove, which is the most expensive among the top-grade artifacts. Niu Chao said. You can use your own alchemy furnace. Granian said with a smile. Alchemists are best at using their own alchemy furnace. Chen Shang released his own world-proud stove. Although the surface was pale golden, compared to that high-grade divine tool-level pill furnace, it was indeed very ordinary. Niu Chao and Granny couldn't see anything, but Granny was very curious about the internal structure of this ancient alchemy furnace. In her eyes, it was like an old antique. Although it was not very powerful, it had historical value. World-Defying Dan God Chapter 5228, Beads of God. Granny beat her up and asked, "Senior, can I have a look at your alchemy furnace? Just to see the internal structure." "Of course, you can just look at it." Chen Shang nodded and said, and looked at the lid of the world-proud stove. The internal structure of the Aoshi Divine Stove is actually very complicated, because there is a lot of space inside. Over the years, Chen Shang has stuffed a lot of things inside the world-proud stove, and Sister Xiaojing has also separated many separate spaces inside. In fact, the Aoshi Divine Stove is not just a stove, it has a hole in it, and it is also a storage artifact close to infinite space. There is also the switching of multiple spaces. For example, the interior of the Aoshi Sacred Stove that Granny saw is clean. A normal internal space of the sacred stove is only as big as a large water tank. However, after Chen Shang closed the lid, he could switch out the space at will, and then refine that space. After many years of transformation by Sister Xiaojing, several small spaces can be divided inside the Aoshi Divine Stove, which is equivalent to multiple alchemy spaces inside the alchemy furnace, which can refine many things at the same time. This is the power of the Aoshi Sacred Furnace, so if Chen Shang has enough medicinal materials, he can refine many furnace pills at the same time through the multiple refining spaces inside the Aoshi Sacred Furnace. The premise is that he must be strong enough to control so much. Granny looked very carefully. What Chen Shang showed her was very ordinary. Even so, Granny looked at it for a long time, and even tapped lightly. The material seems to be very good. Granny also unleashed her soul and divine power to detect it, and found that the Aoshi stove looked ordinary, but it seemed very extraordinary. "It's definitely not as good as yours, but I'm used to it." Chen Shang smiled. "What kind of material is it made of?" "It's not the common alchemy furnace material, so I don't know much about it. I don't know about refining equipment, but I know about alchemy furnaces. I always feel that this alchemy furnace is very unusual. Granny, the more I look at it, the more weird it becomes." Chen Shang secretly admired Granny because he had tried his best to make the world-defying stove look ordinary, but Granny still found something. Chen Shang said, "The materials are all miscellaneous materials. In fact, I don't know it myself. I just used it for many years, and I got used to it, so I just kept using it." Granny asked, "How many years have you used it?" Chen Shang smiled and said, "I don't remember, tens of thousands of years, maybe hundreds of thousands of years." "What?" Granny was taken aback. "It hasn't been bad for so long. Their flames are not strong, so of course they won't burn out. The materials are all from heaven and earth, and the good materials between heaven and earth. It's normal for weak flames to last hundreds of thousands of years." Niu Chao said. "No, although my flame is not particularly strong, I think this stove can withstand my flame." After Granny finished speaking, she released her divine fire. Chen Shang didn't stop him either, he also wanted to see how strong the flames of the alchemists of absolute beginning heaven and earth were. The divine fire released by Granny through the divine power of absolute beginning is indeed very strong, much stronger than Chen Zhang's. But Chen Shang believed that if he could cultivate the absolute beginning divine orb, the flames released would be stronger than theirs, because there are also methods of controlling fire and cultivating flames in the heavenly alchemy technique, which are also common in the absolute beginning world. Granny put away the flame, frowned, and said, "This pill furnace seems to be better than ours." She turned her head to look at the glittering golden alchemy furnace. It was a high-grade alchemy furnace that was close to a king-grade artifact. If Chen Zhang's alchemy furnace is better than theirs, then it is the royal artifact of the absolute beginning heaven and earth. Chen Shang is from ancient times. Granny Anne's Taichu Academy also has a collection of many ancient artifacts. In their eyes, they are all antiques, and the materials used are very poor. After the birth of the absolute heaven and earth, many stars shattered and fell on the absolute beginning heaven and earth, and the energy erupted from the birth of the absolute beginning heaven and earth strengthened the fragments of the stars a lot, and then turned them into many ores. The artifacts of the primordial world are all forged from the powerful materials that are transformed from the stars, and the artifacts that are casually forged are much stronger than those in ancient times. So in the eyes of Granny and the others, artifacts from ancient times can only be regarded as antiques. After all, no matter how good the materials were at that time, that's all. However, the alchemy furnace in Chen Zhang's hand subverted Granny Anne's understanding of ancient artifacts. Chen Shang nodded and said, "This alchemy furnace has been with me for a long time, and has experienced a lot." Niu Chao was surprised. Could it be that this is a royal artifact? Impossible. Granny Anne shook her head and said, "I'm not sure, I'm not a refiner. I just think that this pill furnace can create a very natural and harmonious feeling with the flame, and it can make the flame very peaceful." Chen Shang smiled and said, "Grandma Anne, maybe your fire control ability is very strong." Granny Anne shook her head and said, "No, my flame character is of the more irritable kind, which also makes it difficult for me to advance to the next level in the alchemy. However, my flame has become peaceful in your alchemy furnace. A lot. I never thought that the pill stove could change the character of the flame." Flame personality. It was the first time Chen Shang heard such a statement. At this time, both Chen Shang and Niu Chao could see that Granny Anne liked Chen Zhang's alchemy furnace very much. Her eyes were full of envy and excitement. "That's right, the flames we release through the divine power of the beginning all have their own personalities. And it's hard to change, it's just like that." Grandma Anne sighed. Many people can release flames, and they are also very good at controlling fire. But when it comes to alchemy, the flame personality will be very hot, making it impossible to make alchemy. Chen Shang didn't know what was going on. He thought that it was most likely that the Tao of absolute beginning of heaven and earth was not perfect, or that the divine power of absolute beginning was too strong, which caused the flame to appear in this situation. Granny Anne said again, "Senior, your alchemy furnace can make the flames very peaceful. How did you do it?" Of course, Chen Shang didn't know how to do it, because the Aoshi stove has always been like this. Just now it was under his control that Granny Anne's flame could burn in the furnace, otherwise, if the Aoshi stove repelled her, her flame would be repelled come out. Chen Shang shook his head and said, "I don't know either." At this time, someone also sent 10 earth fire orbs, so that Chen Shang could start alchemy. Granny Anne took out a set of medicinal materials to Chen Shang, which were 3 divine fruits, namely white, black and transparent. There is a divine fruit that is transparent, like a crystal, and it feels soft in the hand. Granny Anne said, "Senior, with these 3 divine fruits, you can refine the pearl of transformation pearl. If you can refine it, the pearl of transformation pearl will be yours." Niu Chao was surprised. "Grandma Anne, did you give him such a high-quality pill from the beginning?" Chen Shang also said before that he had to try with low-quality medicinal materials. Granny Anne said, "He has this alchemy furnace. If this senior has rich experience in alchemy, he might be able to succeed." World Defying Dan God Chapter 5229, Alchemy Unique Skills. Granny Anne was not very optimistic about Chen Shang before, but now she has such a big change in her opinion of Chen Shang, mainly because she saw the godly stove. Granny Anne could tell that Chen Shang didn't know that the world-defying god stove could make the flames milder, so she had a guess that this pill furnace had been influenced by Chen Shang unknowingly for many years, so the pill furnace itself it can affect the character of the flame. This means that Chen Zhang's alchemy technique is very superb, not only alchemy but also affect the alchemy furnace. In fact, Granny Anne's guess is almost inseparable, and the Aoshi Shenfu was indeed deeply influenced by Chen Shang. Chen Zhang's alchemy always uses the art of heavenly refining, and Aoshi Shenlu was affected by this, and he unknowingly mastered a little bit of the art of heavenly refining, including fire control. Chen Shang didn't start right away, but went to investigate and study the 3 divine fruits first. He didn't know the name, and he didn't understand it, but Sister Xiaojing did. Grandma Anne was about to tell Chen Shang the characteristics of these divine fruits, but she heard Chen Shang say, "These 2 black and white divine fruits, the black one is very cold and cloudy, the white one is masculine and hot, and once they are burned by flames, their attributes will change. Turn it around. The white one turns black, and the black one turns white. That transparent divine fruit can turn black and white divine fruits into gold." After Granny Anne heard it, she was shocked. Even those young alchemists who had studied for a period of time had just come into contact with these 3 divine fruits, and they couldn't figure out the functions of the 3 divine fruits by themselves in a short time. And Chen Shang can tell it just by getting started, which shows that he really has a lot of experience in this area. Seeing Granny Anne's surprised look, Niu Chao also exclaimed, "Little disciple, you have something. It's amazing." Granny Anne nodded and said, When many beginners are refining alchemy, even if they are refined in the alchemy furnace, they will not be able to find that the two divine fruits will adjust their colors. You can tell it just by looking at it. How do you do it? Chen Shang smiled and said, I have seen many kinds of medicinal materials. Basically, they remain the same. There are countless kinds of medicinal materials planted inside the divine mirror of six paths. Although those medicinal materials are weeds in the heaven and earth of absolute beginning, the various medicinal materials in the heaven and earth of absolute beginning are basically the same as those planted in the divine mirror of six paths. The only difference is that the medicinal materials in the divine mirror of the six paths contain far less energy than the medicinal materials in the heaven and earth of absolute beginning. Because the medicinal materials of the aboriginal world are all grown by absorbing the power of the aboriginal world. Sister Xiaojing thinks that as long as it is the medicinal materials from the heaven and earth in the beginning, you can basically find shadows on the medicinal materials inside the mirror of six paths, and they are all the same or similar. Chen Shang wanted to confirm one more thing: the medicinal materials and alchemy of absolute beginning heaven and earth were not much different from what he knew. Especially the medicinal materials, it is very likely that they were born according to the countless medicinal materials inside his six paths mirror. There are so many medicinal materials in the divine mirror of the six paths, and the medicinal materials have been hybridized for many years, and new varieties will be produced. After many years of self-propagation and reproduction, they have undergone various mutations, so there are many types. Only Sister Xiaojing remembers the types and characteristics of those medicinal materials clearly. Although Chen Shang can't use those medicinal materials, he can quickly understand the characteristics of the medicinal materials through Sister Xiaojing, so the large amount of medicinal materials inside the divine mirror of six paths is very useful. Chen Shang said, Grandma An, I'm going to start now. Granny An nodded and said, yes. Chen Shang opened the lid of the Aoshi divine furnace, and first put the white divine fruit in. Why release the white one first? Isn't it released together? Granny An couldn't help but ask. It doesn't matter which one is put first. First release the characteristics in the furnace, and then put in another fruit that restrains each other, so that the forces of yin and yang will collide more violently. Chen Shang explained. Let the divine fruit release a stronger for the medicinal power, let them collide with each other first, and even need the two repulsive forces to make them collide more violently. After Chen Shang finished speaking, he picked up an earth fire bead, and then introduced the flame into it. After the flame entered, the Aoshi divine furnace trembled, because the ground fire was very irritable, but luckily Chen Shang could suppress it all at once. Seeing that Chen Shang easily suppressed the earth fire, Granny An felt inconceivable. Because even she is not so easy to suppress the fire, which shows that Chen Zhang's soul is very powerful, above her. Is this the soul that has been tempered for many years? Although the cultivation level of the body is far inferior to that of the star people of absolute beginning heaven and earth, Chen Zhang's soul is so powerful. It was the first time that Granny An had seen the souls of the ancient survivors so strong. After Chen Shang suppressed the introduced ground fire, he then controlled the flames to burn the ginkgo fruit. The ginkgo fruit instantly turned black, and the inside of the alchemy furnace began to be filled with gloomy and cold air, and strands of yin power were released, which could actually make the ferocious ground fire gradually weaken. Chen Shang continued to introduce the earth fire into it, so that the yin qi inside the divine fruit was fully released, and then put the black fruit in and touched the flames. It instantly turned white, and then the masculine energy burst out suddenly. As I guessed, the yin energy in the heaven and earth in the early days is stronger, so I suppressed the yin energy by burning in advance, so that after the yang energy is released, it can be in a state of balance with the yin energy. Chen Shang said. Granny An was dumbfounded, because Chen Shang now allowed her to check the situation inside the proud world divine stove. She could see very clearly that the energy released by the two divine fruits collided with each other, but it was very stable and did not cause the pill stove to shake. Chen Shang said, there is no need to release the transparent divine fruit. The transparent divine fruit is mainly to suppress and absorb the two forces of yin and yang, so that the two can reach a balance and then release the absorbed force into qi. In this way, it will waste the yin and yang powers of black and white. Granny An took a deep breath, because the normal practice is indeed like this. The transparent fruit is for venting energy. Most alchemists, in order to save trouble, would rather vent part of the power of black and white yin and yang, so that they can condense alchemy faster and more smoothly. At this moment, Granny An has already been overwhelmed by Chen Zhang's superb alchemy. Niu Chao also knew how powerful Chen Shang was. He thought his little apprentice was bragging before, but he didn't expect Chen Shang to be so awesome. Even Granny N, the alchemy shopkeeper, was dumbfounded. How many pills can be produced from one serving of medicinal materials? Niu Chao asked in a low voice. 1 grain, Granny N said. 3 grains. Chen Shang said, if you add the transparent divine fruit, what will be drained will be the most violent part of the energy of the black and white yin-yang divine fruit, and that is also the most abundant. It will be drained, which is a waste. Chen Shang could concoct 3 alchemy pills, which Granny N didn't dare to think about, because she had heard of the top alchemists in the Taichu Academy, but they could barely refine 2 pills of relatively poor quality. It is absolutely impossible to condense 3 pills. And now that Chen Shang said 3 grains easily, Granny N thought it was impossible at first, but after seeing Chen Zhang's alchemy, she felt that it was nothing impossible. At this moment, the yin and yang, black and white medicinal divine powers were softened together by Chen Shang, turning them into a golden mass, and after they were fully fused, they were quickly divided into 3 clusters. Chen Shang sighed, and said, I don't have the divine beat of absolute beginning yet, so I can't inject the divine power of absolute beginning, otherwise I can condense 4 pills, what a pity. No. 52. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5230, A Star is Born Again. Granny N didn't understand, because she had read some books about the alchemists of the ancient survivors, and those alchemists were all very poor. However, the alchemy technique mastered by Chen Shang in front of her can only be described as defying the sky. Chen Zhang's operation looks very simple, but she is sure that she will not be able to learn it in her whole life. What's more, when Chen Shang was refining alchemy, he allowed Granny N to explore the inside of the alchemy furnace at will, which showed that he was very confident and not afraid of being disturbed. Normally, alchemists do not allow anyone to inspect the alchemy furnace during alchemy, because this is a kind of harassment, which will affect the performance of the alchemist and may even cause the furnace to explode. So Granny N was very sure that Chen Zhang's alchemy was extremely brilliant, reaching a level that they couldn't understand. When Niu Chao saw Granny Ann's reaction, he started to feel a little guilty, because he had fooled Chen Shang into being his apprentice before, and he was boasted so much by himself, and then he didn't believe that Chen Shang could make alchemy. Now Chen Shang is not only able to make alchemy, but also very good at alchemy, which makes Niu Chao feel mixed feelings, but he is more happy. Because Chen Shang has a very good relationship with him, and Chen Shang can make alchemy, which means that Niu Chao has a friend who is an alchemist. Chen Zhang's refining speed is very fast, and there are only 3 pills, and he still uses the worst ground fire to refine. Earth fire alchemy is something Granny N never thought of. There are alchemists who have tried it before, but no alchemist has ever succeeded in the records. The main reason is that there are too many impurities in the ground fire, and it is difficult to control the fire. Also very violent. However, in Chen Zhang's hands, he was not affected by the ground fire, everything was so natural and smooth, it could be said that it was done in one go. This state shocked Granny N for several years. Not long after, the 3 pills of the beads of transformation were released, shining golden. This is not Chen Zhang's best state. On the one hand, it is because he does not have his own flame, and on the other hand, he is not yet familiar with the practice rules here. Therefore, the quality of these 3 beads of transformation pills is only average in Chen Zhang's eyes. Granny N exclaimed, the top-grade Wazhu God pill. Niu Chao was completely dumbfounded. Not only could Chen Shang refine a divine pill, but it was also a high-grade divine pill, or 3 pills. Chen Shang asked, Grandma N, is it rare to see a high-grade bead of transformation pill? Niu Chao exclaimed in surprise, what's so rare? There's no such thing at all, okay. The Pearl of Wazhu, the low-grade pill is considered good. Because the Shendan of Wazhu is not a rare pill, and a powerful alchemist will not devote energy to it. Refined top grade. Granny N nodded and said, the bead transformation pills for sale are all low grade. And the low grade ones are enough to cultivate the absolute beginning divine bead, there is no need to refine it into a high grade. But, Senior Shen, you seem to be able to refine it easily, really. Incredible. Chen Shang said. If you eat the high-grade pearl of transformation, what will the divine pearl of absolute beginning be like? Will it be better? 3 pills of the bead of transformation floated in front of Chen Shang and the 3 of them. The cultivation of the divine orb of absolute beginning. Niu Chao said, if the conditions are good during cultivation, you can cultivate a relatively large divine orb of absolute beginning at once. The current Niu Chao didn't dare to call himself Chen Zhang's master anymore. Granian said, "It seems that no one has ever tried to practice the divine orb of absolute beginning by eating the top-grade divine pearl of Wazoo. You won't waste time practicing. Senior, I think you can give it a try." Chen Shang asked, "Master, does the formation of the divine bead of absolute beginning have anything to do with the Tao soul of absolute beginning?" Niu Chao looked at Granian, because Chen Zhang's absolute beginning Tao soul was rather special, which he couldn't understand. Granian asked, "Senior, what is your absolute Tao soul like?" Chen Shang told Granian about the situation of his primordial soul. Niu Chao said, "Maybe it's the 5-star Taichu Taoist soul." Chen Shang spread out his palms, revealing his primordial Tao marks, shaped like the Tianxuan starfield, and then released the aura of his primordial Tao soul. Granian frowned and said, "I'm sure it's a star Tao soul, but it's not an ordinary star Tao soul. Tao souls have no form, no attributes, which means they can change into ever-changing ways. There are indeed such star Tao souls in legends." Chen Zhang's previous cultivation of destiny and various cultivations were very complicated, and with the addition of the 6 paths of practice, now that he knows that his Tao soul can change in an ever-changing manner, he doesn't find it strange. Let's eat the divine bead of transformation pill first and practice. After cultivating the divine bead of absolute beginning, eat 3 pills in one go. Granian said, "Senior, after you have finished your cultivation, we will talk about cooperation." "Grandma N, will you record things about me?" Chen Shang asked. "Senior, do you mind if I record it? If so, I won't remember it." Granian laughed. Chen Shang thought for a while, and replied, "I don't mind." Granian said, "After I record it, I will release it at the right time, and it should be more than 10 years later. Because there are too few things about Chen Shang, and it is nothing to write them down. Although they are very shocking, they sound too amazing, which will lead to many doubts. At that time, it will bring a lot of trouble to Chen Shang, so Granian will not let her out immediately." After Granian and Niu Chao left, Chen Shang ate 3 pills of beads of transformation in this alchemy room and then began to practice. After Chen Shang ate it, he used the heaven alchemy technique. He directly used the technique of heavenly refining to cultivate, because the divine bead of absolute beginning needs to be solidified inside his soul. Chen Shang closed his eyes, and soon entered the state of cultivation. Now the technique of heaven alchemy can be used not only for alchemy, but also for cultivation. Chen Shang suddenly felt that the heavenly alchemy technique seemed to be touching his soul, so he used the heavenly alchemy technique to cultivate. It didn't take long for Chen Zhang's consciousness to enter a space filled with endless darkness, and there was only a ray of light in the middle, which was his Tao soul of absolute beginning. There was darkness all around, but he could feel that it was very huge, and the area illuminated by the Tao soul of absolute beginning was very small and looked very delicate. Suddenly, a light mist gradually appeared in front of him, which was the energy introduced after he ate the pearl of transformation pill. After absolute beginning Tao soul absorbs energy, with the operation of Tianlian art, it seems to enter the stage of congealing pills. What shocked Chen Shang was that he thought it would only condense into a very small bead, but he didn't expect it to gradually swell and become very huge, like a bright and shining star in front of his eyes. This star is golden, and the aura it exudes makes him feel very familiar. Ancient star of the 6 paths. Chen Shang was shocked. The ancient star Lu Daotian appeared in the depths of his soul. Could it be that he was reborn in this way? Although the ancient star of Lu Daotian became golden, Chen Shang was very sure that this was his ancient star of Lu Daotian. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5231, Alchemist of the Beginning. Although Chen Shang knew very well that the ancient star of Lu Daotian had become the queen of Qingxing, the heaven and the earth in the beginning, and the order of the heaven and the earth, but he was still very distressed when it disappeared so suddenly. Whether it was Tianji Yuxing or Lu Daoji Yuxing, he worked so hard to bring it up, and then he finally said it was gone, so he has always been worried about it. Now, he saw the ancient star of 6 paths reappeared in the depths of his soul, and it also appeared in the form of the divine orb of absolute beginning, so he felt extremely gratified. This piece of primordial world still remembers him, has not abandoned him, nor has he forgotten his contribution to this piece of primordial world. Chen Shang can now be sure that there is a connection between absolute beginning heaven and earth and himself. The mark of aboriginality on his palm is in the shape of the Tianxuan starfield, and his aboriginal divine orb is the ancient star of the 6 paths, all of which indicate that the aboriginal world knows many things about him, or the avenue of the aboriginal world, as long as he perceives when it comes to him, it will be repaid to him. Sister Xiaojing smiled and said, "Brother, this is a good thing. Many aspects of the world in the early days have been influenced by you. For example, the medicinal materials here, such as alchemy. Maybe even many aspects have been influenced by you." Quote. Chen Shang smiled and said, "It seems to be like this. I don't know why it is like this. I really want to find Qingxing and ask, could it be her?" Sister Xiaojing said, "Queen Qingxing should know something. You are still too weak now, so don't go there for now. The area where she is located must be a place where strong people gather." After Chen Shang cultivated the divine beat of absolute beginning, he was able to condense the divine fire of absolute beginning, and under his control, the divine fire of absolute beginning could make alchemy. My absolute beginning divine fire doesn't seem to have any personality, unlike Granny Anne's kind of flame. Chen Shang was relieved a lot. He was worried that there was something wrong with his flame before. He had only practiced for 2 days before he walked out of the alchemy room, and Niu Chao was waiting outside. "How about this? Have you broken through?" Now Niu Chao is too embarrassed to call Chen Shang, little disciple. Chen Shang smiled and said, "Master, you help me, you will always be my master. But let me tell you in advance, I have many masters." Niu Chao immediately felt relieved, and said with a smile, "I don't mind if you have many masters. It is normal for Chen Shang to live so long and meet many masters. I cultivated the divine orb of absolute beginning. It seems to be a star." Chen Shang said. "Grandma and I guessed that it is also a star." Niu Chao was not surprised, and said, "You are an ancient remnant, and being able to cultivate stars shows that your chances are very good." Chen Shang nodded, then looked around, and asked, "Where is Granny Anne?" Niu Chao said, "She said to worry about those annoying things. If you come out, ask me to give you this." Niu Chao also has a magic weapon for storage, which is a small round bead hanging around his neck. He took out a box from inside and handed it to Chen Shang. After Chen Shang opened it, he found that it was a stack of star crystal tickets, and then a card made of star crystal. He was hired as the alchemist of Taichu Academy in the holy city of Jinyu. Niu Chao said, "Grandma An said that the alchemists in Taichu Shuigong are very free, as long as they refine enough magic pills every year. My little apprentice, with your strength, you can do whatever you want. For alchemists in the Taichu Academy, the purchase of medicinal materials is half price, or even lower." He looked at a booklet inside the box, which contained some prescriptions and so on. Chen Shang needs to refine 100 pills of the Pearl of Blossom every year, and the medicinal materials are from Taichu Shuigong. For Chen Shang, this is really too simple, especially since the requirements for the Pearl of Beads are low grade, so he can refine several pills in one furnace. Chen Shang now also needs a large amount of Pearl transformation pills, mainly for the Purgatory Saintess group, and he still has thousands of little sisters to raise. Because of Chen Zhang's relationship, Niu Chao was also able to live in the Taichu Academy, and he also found a job, which was to go to those star villages to buy medicinal materials and so on. After Niu Chao handed over the things to Chen Shang, he immediately went to work, and the rewards were quite generous. Chen Shang also doesn't need to worry about Niu Chao, because his kind of Taurus is already very safe on the land above the Taurus star. Chen Shang also suddenly remembered that there is a huge Taurus star under this land, and he was able to cultivate the divine orb of absolute beginning of the 6 heavenly ancient stars. It is very likely that the Taurus star helped him build a bridge. Chen Shang came to the 100th floor. His residence was arranged on this floor. It is very luxurious and spacious, with 30 large rooms with various functions, and several large and small halls. Granny Anne is the shopkeeper of Dantang, so she can get good treatment for Chen Shang. Chen Shang was in the hall, letting the sacred water fragrance and the narcissus come out, these 2 eldest sisters of the Purgatory Saintess group. After they came out, they stood on the spacious balcony, looking at the scenery of the holy city of Jinyu. Then Chen Shang also talked about his own cultivation experience. The current problem is how to help them obtain the Tao Soul of Absolute Beginning. Chen Shang was sitting on the chair, and the charming Narcissus Ying also came over to squeeze together with him. This ecstatic little fairy really wanted Chen Shang, and she was also very clingy at the moment. Seeing Narcissus Ying like this, Shui Shengxiang snorted a few times and said, "Brother Shen, let's go take a bath. Let's take a bath together and talk about cultivation." Yes, let's go," Narcissus Ying said with a smile. Chen Shang also smiled and went to take a bath with them. The bath here is full of divine liquid condensed from the divine power of the beginning, which is also very rare. Shui Shengxiang was the last to enter the water. When her body was soaked in the water, a very strange and wonderful fragrance filled the whole pool. Chen Shang and Narcissus Ying, who were also soaking in the water, felt incredible. Narcissus Ying said, "Sister, it seems that your physique matches the divine power of absolute beginning very well." Chen Shang suddenly thought of whether all the ancient survivors had any connection with this world of primordial beginning. For example, Narcissus Ying and Shui Shengxiang, did they really no longer belong to the heaven and earth of absolute beginning? Seeing Shui Shengxiang's body now reacts with the divine liquid formed by the divine power of the beginning, exuding this wonderful body fragrance, which shows that there is still a certain connection. What does this connection mean? What can it bring to the ancient remnants? Chen Shang was thinking, could rely on this connection to make it easier for the ancient survivors to obtain the Tao soul of absolute beginning. In this way, the Purgatory Saintess group can quickly cultivate, otherwise it would take a long time to help them find the Tao soul of absolute beginning. Sister Xiaojing said, "Brother, your divine bead of absolute beginning is the ancient star of the six paths of heaven, which is the source of creating the heaven and earth of absolute beginning. I think you can use the divine bead of absolute beginning to create the Tao soul of absolute beginning." Chen Shang was a little worried, and said, "Sister Jing, if I create a large number of Tao souls in the beginning, will it destroy the order of the world in the beginning?" World Defying Dan God Chapter 5232, Create Tao Soul. Chen Shang is very satisfied with the current absolute beginning heaven and earth. If it continues to operate like this without any troubles, absolute beginning heaven and earth can be said to be perfect. So Chen Shang is very cautious now. He doesn't dare to act recklessly. He is worried that it will cause great damage to the Tao order of the world in the early days. Sister Xiaojing said, "Brother, logically speaking, if you can do it and it doesn't cause any punishment from heaven, then it should be fine. You created a large number of Tao souls in the beginning, just for the Purgatory Saintess group, and not sold." Chen Shang sighed. "I still don't want to mess around, so as not to destroy the balance of the world in the beginning." Sister Xiaojing smiled and said, "You are only using it in a small area, and it will not cause any damage at all. Think about it, how many creatures are there in the absolute beginning heaven and earth? And you just created more than 1,000 aboriginal Tao souls, which is not worth mentioning at all." Quote. Chen Shang still wanted to try if he could create it in his heart, because it was driven by curiosity, he just wanted to try. Chen Shang, who was talking with little sister Xiaojing, was very serious, but Shui Shenying had already swam over to lean against him, and the same was true for Shui Shengxiang, hugging him gently by his side. "Brother Shen, I don't know if we can gain a foothold in this place after hearing what you said about the absolute beginning heaven and earth." Shui Shengxiang was also a little anxious at the moment, because in the world of absolute beginning, they and Chen Shang were very different. Chen Shang came back to his senses, and smiled lightly. "Don't worry, as long as we practice hard, we will definitely have a place in the absolute beginning heaven and earth." After soaking in the bath, Shui Shengxiang and Narcissus Ying returned to the Shenzhen Xuanmo Tower. But Chen Shang began to think about how to create the Tao soul of absolute beginning. Seeing that Shui Shengxiang and Narcissus Ying were so anxious, Chen Shang could only create the Tao soul of absolute beginning for them, otherwise they would indeed fall behind a lot. Sister Xiaojing said, "Brother, your Tao soul of absolute beginning is very strong, try to see if you can release your soul power through your Tao soul of absolute beginning." Chen Shang tried it, and said, "Yes." Sister Xiaojing said, "Let's leave the holy city of Jinyu and go outside to find a large open space." At night, after Chen Shang disappeared, he quietly left the Golden Bull holy city. He walked for more than 10 hours before he came to a large open space. Then, when the night was full of stars, he released the magic mirror of six paths and made it bigger. Chen Shang sat in the middle of the divine mirror of the six paths, and then split a soul thread through his absolute beginning Tao soul release, and then put it into the world-defying divine furnace. He began to inject the soul power of the Tao soul of absolute beginning into the Aoshi sacred stove, and then it became a huge lake-like divine mirror of the six paths, and also began to gather the starlight from the sky, condensing it into power and injecting it into the Aoshi sacred stove. "Brother, how is the effect? A euro, is this idea okay?" Sister Xiaojing asked. This was what she thought of before. "It's not bad. We can gather the power of the stars, maybe we can create the stars Taichu Tao soul." Chen Shang looked at the world-proud sacred furnace, and something was gradually condensing inside. He is also running the technique of Tianlian now, but he has to be vigilant all the time, because this is a very unfamiliar environment for them, and their strength in this environment is at the bottom. After a night of trying, Chen Shang successfully created an absolute beginning Dao Soul, which looked like a star Dao Soul. After dawn, he ran to the holy city of Taurus, and then returned to the room, calling out Shui Shengxiang and Narcissus Ying. Star Dao Soul is more suitable for Shui Shengxiang, so I will try Shui Shengxiang first. Chen Shang helped Shui Shengxiang to fuse. The process was very smooth, and it was indeed a Dao Soul, located in the depths of Shui Shengxiang's soul. Narcissus Ying said, "Brother Shen, it's so troublesome for you to create a star Dao Soul, then it's better to just create a flame Dao Soul directly. Didn't you say that there are a lot of earth fires here? Use that thing to create a Dao Soul. Let's use the flame Dao Soul. The soul is enough." Narcissus Ying felt very distressed when she thought that Chen Shang would create 1,000 star Dao Soul, so she felt that the flame Dao Soul was nothing. Shui Shengxiang nodded and said, "Although Dao Soul is important, as long as it is enough for everyone. In the practice of Taichu heaven and earth, the Dao Soul is a hurdle. If there is no one, there is no way to continue." Chen Shang asked someone to send a lot of earth fire god beads. This kind of beads contained a lot of underground god fire of absolute beginning. Although they were very violent, they contained very strong divine power of the fire god of absolute origin. Chen Shang was the same as before, separated out a strand of the soul thread of the Dao Soul of absolute beginning, put it into the Aoshi Shen furnace, and then put it into the earth fire god bead, and used the technique of heavenly alchemy to let the earth fire god pearl release flames and gather in the Dao Soul of absolute beginning near the soul silk. The soul silk began to absorb the divine power of the flame refined by the sky refining technique, and then gradually expanded and became larger, degenerating into a Dao Soul. Not long after, a flame Dao Soul was created. Chen Shang was still very surprised, because he didn't expect to create Dao Soul so easily. And this flame soul is also very good. Under Chen Zhang's guidance, Narcissus Ying quickly fused with the flame soul. Then Chen Shang went on to created 10 in one breath, and asked Narcissus Ying and Shui Shengxiang to take them back for fusion with other women. After Chen Shang stayed in the Taichu Academy Palace for a few days, Granny An came to find him with a helpless and guilty expression on her face. "Grandma An, what's the matter?" Chen Shang was about to collect the medicinal materials and was about to start refining the pearl of essence. "I gave you a very high treatment, but someone is not happy, and even questioned your alchemy." Granny An sighed. "Senior, this will bring you a lot of trouble." Chen Shang frowned and said, "Is it the high-level officials of Taichu Academy who are questioning me? I just need to hand in the Pearl God Pill." Granny An said, "Although Taichu Shuigong questioned. But as long as you hand in the Pearl of Transformation, there is no problem. The people who question you now are other alchemists, because your treatment is better than theirs, but in my opinion nothing, because your level is higher than theirs." Chen Shang said, "Then leave them alone, I will hand in 100 pills of the Pearl of Transformation within a year on time." To be honest, it is too easy for Chen Shang to hand in 100 pills of the Pearl of Transformation a year. It is nothing at all. Granny An considered that Chen Shang had just cultivated the Pearl of Transformation pearl, so she didn't give him too much work. After all, cultivation was the most important thing for Chen Shang. Granny An sighed. "The palace master here is also annoyed to death by those alchemists, so I arranged for you to compete with those alchemists to convince them." Chen Shang smiled and said, "So that's the case, then let's go." Granny An whispered, "Senior, during the competition, you can't use your pill furnace." In Granny An's opinion, half of Chen Zhang's skill in alchemy is due to that world-defying furnace. Then no need. Chen Shang didn't care at all. He now has the divine bead of absolute beginning. He can release the flames by himself, even without using the world-proud sacred furnace, he can still refine pills. World-defying Dan God Chapter 5233, Alchemy Shocking. Chen Shang followed Granny into a spacious hall. There were already 8 alchemists standing here, and they were also the only alchemists in the Taichu Academy in the holy city of Jinyu. These 8 alchemists looked very old, even older than Granny An. On the way here, Granny An said that all the alchemists who were younger or experienced in Taichu Shuigong were poached away, and Granny An was the only alchemist trained by Taichu Shuigong. Therefore, Taichu Shuigong attaches great importance to the opinions of these 8 alchemists. Now they demanded to compete with Chen Shang, and they also demanded that if they win against Chen Shang, they would have the same treatment as Chen Shang. Granian also said that these 8 alchemists are not bad, but they are just very dissatisfied. After all, they are all very old. It can be said that they have spent their entire lives studying alchemy. Now some people say that their alchemy is not as good as the alchemists of the ancient survivors, so they were very dissatisfied, so they wanted to compete with Chen Shang. Chen Shang learned that these 8 old alchemists treated Taichu Shuigong very well, because the 3 big forces of Jinyu Holy City gave them very generous treatment. They did not leave Taichu Shuigong, mainly because of their respect for Taichu Shuigong. They are in love, and Taichu Shuigong also has kindness towards them. There were originally 100 alchemists in the Taichu Academy, and they all received more or less help from the Taichu Academy. The Taichu Academy provided them with resources and alchemy. But now, after they were trained, the 3 forces offered very generous conditions, and they immediately left the Taichu Academy. This also made Granian very angry. When Chen Shang came to this hall, when the 8 alchemists saw him, they all laughed politely. They looked very modest, and they didn't look aggressive or contemptuously mocking Chen Shang. Chen Shang also saw the master of Taichu Academy Palace, and to his great surprise, the master turned out to be a little girl who was only as tall as his waist. Chen Shang looked at the little girl palace master in front of him, and felt that the more he looked, the more familiar he looked, because he looked a little like Qingxing, not very similar, only 5 or 6 points. Is this the alchemist from the ancient survivors? He's pretty handsome, he looks very young too. The palace master smiled and said, no wonder the other seniors are not convinced. Granian hurriedly said, Master, this senior Shen is not young. He is at least 100,000 years old. In fact, he himself can't remember exactly how old he is. Chen Shang said, Chen Shang, I have met the master of Taichu Shuigong. I don't know what the girl's name is. Since you are an old senior, then you are welcome to call me Zhao King. Chen Shang raised his eyebrows, because Zhao King and Qingxing are more or less connected, right? They all have the word Qing, and they are all a bit alike. Perhaps when Zhao King in front of me grows up, her appearance will most likely be the same as Qingxing's. There is another first possibility, which is that Zhao King is Qingxing's clone, but has no memory of Qingxing, and is only in charge of managing Taichu Academy. Yan Zillion and Shinru can cultivate a large number of avatars, and the avatars are not the same as the deity in appearance, but they are somewhat similar. The avatars do not have the memory of the deity, but they can share memories in the future. When Chen Shang thought of Yan Zillion and Shinru, he missed his women very much, and wanted to know where the 100 Flowers Temple was. He was in Tianggu Purgatory before, because there were too many things, he didn't have the chance to go. In addition, the 100 Flowers Temple has always been well hidden, and he didn't want to be exposed. At that time, he was hunted down by various enemies, and he didn't want to get involved in the 100 Flowers Temple, so he never went there. Senior Shen, Granian said that you are very strong in alchemy, but she didn't reveal how strong you are, and she didn't show us the alchemy you made, so we have some doubts about your alchemy, please understand. A bald old man is also very polite. I can understand this point. Chen Shang nodded, and said, why don't I refine a furnace of the Pearl of Transformation pill on the spot, to prove my alchemy, and to prove that Grandma didn't lie to you. Originally speaking, it was more about trying alchemy, but if the quality of the pill that Chen Shang refined was good, then there was no need to compare. Palace Master Zhao King said, Senior Shen, you need to use our alchemy furnace and our medicinal materials so that everyone can be convinced. Chen Shang nodded and said, no problem. The alchemy furnace is also a very good alchemy furnace. It is a top-grade artifact-level alchemy furnace that is close to Wangpin, and the quality of the medicinal materials is also extremely high. Chen Shang had refined the Pearl of Transformation before, so he would only become more proficient now. Even if he didn't need the world-defying divine furnace, he could easily refine it. Everyone, I'm willing to let you peek inside the pill furnace. Chen Shang said suddenly. This made the 8 alchemists very surprised. It was fine to let people spy on them, and let many people spy on them. This is a very confident performance. When spying on the alchemy furnace, you need to inject a strong soul power, which will have a great impact on the alchemy process. Palace Master Zhao King was also quite surprised, and said, Senior Shen, are you really okay? If people spy on you, it will have a great impact on you. No problem, you can watch as you please, I don't mind. Chen Shang smiled confidently, I'll start now. Chen Shang used his own refining method. first put in the black fruit to burn for a while, and then put in the white fruit to burn for refining, and he didn't let go of the third transparent divine fruit this time. The 8 old alchemists were very surprised and puzzled. Because she knew how Chen Shang made the alchemy, Granny An also explained the reason, and the 8 old alchemists and palace master Zhao King couldn't believe it. If it weren't for the 8 alchemists spying on the situation of the alchemy furnace at any time, they would definitely not believe it, because this kind of alchemy method completely exceeded his understanding of alchemy. Although Palace Mistress Zhao King does not know how to make alchemy, she is the mistress of Taichu Academy and has a lot of knowledge, so she also knows what this kind of alchemy means. Chen Shang directly refined 4 grains in one furnace, and they were still top grade. The 8 alchemists and Palace Master Zhao King were shocked. Granny An was also surprised and said, "Senior, this time it's 4 pills, last time it was only 3 pills, you're improving so fast." Chen Shang smiled and said, "Last time I used the ground fire to refine it, but now I use the flame condensed from my own divine bead of absolute beginning, and also injected a large amount of divine power of absolute beginning into it, so I can condense 4 pills." One batch of 4 top-grade pills of the Pearl of Transformation was easily refined. What shocked the 8 alchemists the most was that Chen Shang had just cultivated the divine orb of absolute beginning. He had just stepped into the absolute beginning realm, not even the first stage of absolute beginning realm. Looking at the 4 golden pills of beads of transformation, and sniffing the fragrant and rich fragrance of the pills, the bald old alchemist quickly walked up to Chen Shang, and then plopped down on his knees. "Senior, please accept me as my apprentice." The other 7 old alchemists also came over and knelt down one after another, calling for Chen Shang to accept them as disciples. Chen Shang suddenly thought that if Niu Chao was around, he would definitely be confused. Because if these old alchemists worshipped Chen Shang as their teacher, then they would be Niu Chao's disciples, and Niu Chao would definitely be very happy. Do you like this site? Donate here. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5234, Tianshuan Danshu. Chen Shang doesn't want to accept apprentices now, because it is impossible for him to stay in this place for too long, and when it's almost there, he will use the Stargate of Taichu Academy Palace to teleport away. He wants to find Empress Qingxing as soon as possible. He doesn't know what's going on there now, so he can only go there as soon as possible to find out. Chen Shang smiled and said, "To be honest, I don't have any plans to accept apprentices now, but I am willing to guide you and help you improve your alchemy skills, so as to benefit the world in the early days. If you don't accept apprentices, you still have to point them out." After the 8 alchemists heard this, they immediately kowtowed their heads in thanks. Granny An was also very surprised by this result. She originally thought that after Chen Shang came out of alchemy, these alchemists would at most praise him a few words, but she didn't expect to just bow down and want to become Chen Zhang's apprentice. Seeing this scene, Palace Master Zhao King also breathed a sigh of relief, showing a happy smile. Afterwards, Chen Shang began to explain his understanding of alchemy. Grandma An was also an alchemist, so she listened very carefully. Although Palace Mistress Zhao King doesn't practice alchemy, she is the mistress of Taichu Academy, so she just listens carefully as she is absorbing knowledge. After Chen Shang communicated with these alchemists, he found that the alchemy they learned was created by Chen Shang back then. Back then, Chen Shang created an alchemy technique based on the technique of heavenly alchemy and his many years of experience in alchemy. He gave a copy to his mother, and asked her to choose a good alchemy technique in the Tianshuan Starfield, and then teach them. Later, he passed it on to the members of the Tianggu Star Alliance, such as Purgatory Blood Gate, Shen Family, Aoshi Temple, 100 Flowers Temple, and Monster Soul Queen Kingdom. When Chen Shang created this alchemy technique back then, he did not expect that it would be so widely spread, and now the alchemists in the entire absolute beginning world seem to be learning the alchemy technique he created. Of course, he also discovered that his alchemy has developed into several branches, that is, some alchemists with good talents modified it according to his alchemy. The advantage of this is that their alchemy will be of better quality and easier to refine. The disadvantage is that they tend to be biased and only favor one type of alchemy. As the founder of the mountain, Chen Shang, even if the alchemy he created has been changed beyond recognition, it is still his alchemy in his bones, so he is very familiar with and understands it. He can just see at a glance the shortcomings and disadvantages of those modified alchemy techniques, and he can even instantly know how to make them better. These 8 alchemy techniques in Granny An, they learned all kinds of alchemy techniques, but at their core, they were still the alchemy techniques that Chen Shang created back then. After Chen Shang explained them carefully, they suddenly realized that the alchemy techniques they had learned all came down in one continuous line. Chen Shang also corrected them again, let them only learn the most orthodox, that kind of partial alchemy that has been modified by others, there will be bottlenecks and it will be easy to end. After listening to Chen Zhang's explanation, these alchemy techniques all admired Chen Shang, and knew that Chen Shang had lived for so many thousands of years, and he did not live in vain. Palace Master Zhao King said, Master Shen, you know this alchemy so well, have you ever studied it? Or did you find out from your own experience that the alchemy practiced by everyone in alchemy has similarities, and you can also see their problems? Where? Chen Shang said, this alchemy. It did exist back then. Of course, this is not the alchemy I use myself, no one can learn my alchemy. This surprised Palace Master Zhao King and those alchemists. Why did the alchemy that existed in ancient times spread in the world in the early days? Palace Mistress Zhao King repeatedly shook her head and said, impossible, this alchemy is called Tianshuan Danshu. It was passed down to everyone by the Empress, it cannot be from ancient times, it should be created by the Empress. Tianshuan Pill. When Chen Shang heard this name, he was secretly surprised, and learned that it was Qingxing who heard it, so Qingxing had contact with the Tianshuan starfield. Does Qingxing know about the existence of Aoshi universe? So, did Qingxing have contact with the 100 Flowers Temple and the Tianggu Star Alliance? Chen Shang couldn't wait to go to Queen Qingxing's side to have a look, maybe the Aoshi Temple and 100 Flowers Temple are at the Qingxing God statue. Palace Mistress Zhao King believed in her Empress very much, but she also knew that Chen Shang in front of her was very familiar with Tianshuan alchemy. Chen Shang smiled and said, maybe the roads are connected. Granny An quickly said, yes, there are some things that are interlinked. Other alchemists didn't dare to question Empress Qingxing, nor did they dare to question Chen Shang, so they could only perfunctory. Granny An and the others also realized that the existence of Chen Shang would most likely challenge the authority of Empress Qingxing. Because the alchemy that Chen Shang has mastered is too transcendent, completely above Queen Qingxing. So now they all said that they would go back to study alchemy, and after thanking Chen Shang, they left one after another. Palace Mistress Zhao King sat on her seat. Her small face was very serious, she frowned slightly and stared at Chen Shang, saying, you are not an ordinary remnant of the ancient times. The alchemy you master seems to be higher than that of the Empress, and you also said God the Zan Dan technique comes from ancient times. However, the Tianshuan Dan technique was given to us by the Queen Qingxing, and the Queen passed the Tianshuan Dan technique to everyone in the absolute beginning heaven and earth without reservation. Chen Shang smiled and said, the Empress also existed in ancient times. She mastered alchemy at that time, and it's normal to share it with everyone now. No, the Empress is not an ancient survivor. Palace Mistress Zhao King shook her head repeatedly. I didn't say that she is an ancient survivor. She is a star, so you should be a star too, right? Stars and ancient survivors are not the same kind of people. Chen Shang said. Okay, let's not mention this matter. I can see that you don't have any malicious intentions, but your existence seems to be against the sky. Palace Master Zhao King sighed softly, I'm in a mess right now. As the Lord of Taichu School Palace, I must be vigilant against someone like you who may shake the Empress' prestige. Chen Shang looked at this little girl, shook his head and smiled, Palace Master Zhao King, how old are you? Palace Mistress Zhao King curled her lips and said, 10 years old, what's wrong? I was raised by Empress Qingxing since I was a child, and I am qualified to be the Palace Mistress of Taichu Palace. Chen Shang thought that the little girl in front of him just looked like a girl, but she was actually an old guy, but he didn't expect that she was really a 10-year-old girl. However, Chen Shang was also quite surprised to know that she grew up beside the Empress Qingxing. Have you really seen Queen Qingxing? Chen Shang asked. I've seen it. Palace Master Zhao King nodded. Then have you heard her say my name? My name is Chen Shang, you know it? Chen Shang asked. Haven't heard of it. Do you know the Empress? Palace Mistress Zhao King asked with a frown. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5235, 3 Saints. Chen Shang originally wanted to say that he knew each other, but after thinking about it, he decided not to say it for the time being, because there was a strange feeling in the whole world of absolute beginning. Chen Shang didn't know why he felt this way, he just felt that the heaven and earth had been formed for 20,000 years in the early days, but it seemed to have experienced a lot, and there was also the existence of the school of the Taichu school. This Taichu Academy seems to be built by Queen Qingxing, but it does not have any power and cannot exert a strong influence on the entire Taichu world, otherwise it would not be able to control the price of the elixir. The original intention of the Academy of Absolute Beginning should be to enable all living beings to practice the Tao of Absolute Beginning, but there are still many obstacles in it. If the Academy of Absolute Beginning has enough power, it will be easy to clear these obstacles. Brother Shen, can I call you Brother Shen? Have you met the Empress? Palace Mistress Zhao King asked. No, maybe I'm too arrogant. Because I was quite famous in Tianggu Purgatory back then, I thought Empress Sunny Star had heard of my name and mentioned it to you. Chen Shang laughed at himself. You can call me whatever you want, I don't mind. Ah, Brother Shen, are you a famous person in Tianggu Purgatory? Why are you so famous? Have you done anything remarkable? Palace Master Zhao King was suddenly curious. I used to be the #1 enemy of the Temple of Time and the Temple of Heaven and Man back then, no, and the Star Spirit race, I was a thorn in their side. Chen Shang laughed, and said with a smile, when the world was born in the early days, I don't know why it took 20,000 years to show up. I was restrained by various forces for a long time, and I always felt that they were doing something. Chen Shang really thought about this problem very seriously, because the speed at which the heaven and earth were formed in the early days was faster than he imagined, and it took him almost 20,000 years to see the sun again, and most of the ancient survivors of the ancient purgatory were integrating into the world of aboriginality earlier than him. After thinking about it, he thought that it was the Temple of Heaven and Man and the Temple of Time who used the last space-time power they could control to disgust him and slow down the time for him to integrate into the heaven and earth in the beginning. In this way, the Temple of Time and the Temple of Heaven and Man can integrate into the heaven and earth of Absolute Beginning early, stronger than him, and can crush him in terms of strength. So when Chen Shang thought of this matter, he was very angry. Palace Master Zhao King asked in surprise, Brother Shen, is what you said true? You were once the #1 enemy of the Temple of Time, the Temple of Heaven and Man, and the Star Spirit clan. Chen Shang nodded and said, that's right. Don't gossip about this matter, they should be very strong now, and they don't even know about my appearance. Palace Master Zhao King shook her head and said, the Temple of Time, the Temple of Heaven and Man, and the Star Spirit race you mentioned are all very important existences in the heaven and earth of Absolute Beginning. Chen Shang was stunned for a moment, almost speechless. What is the relationship between this, the Empress and these three forces? Don't you know the history of the Temple of Time and the Temple of Heaven and Man? Palace Master Zhao King shook her head and said, I'm not sure. In short, they are all very great. They helped build the Taichu Academy. The Star Spirit race helped us understand and control the stars. There are many stars buried in the Taichu Academy. Under the earth, it was found by the Protoss. Chen Shang swallowed his saliva, his spine suddenly felt chills. The Temple of Heaven and Man, the Temple of Time and the Star Spirit race, they were not destroyed, and they still had great strength and high prestige in the Absolute Beginning heaven and earth. Have you learned from the Empress what her attitude is towards them? Chen Shang asked. I don't have any attitude either. The Empress never loses her temper, and she is very gentle and friendly to everyone. Palace Mistress Xiao Qing shook her head and said, Brother Shen, do you have any problems with Sansheng? Chen Shang frowned. 3 saints. Palace Master Zhao King nodded and said, we all call them that. They are the 3 holy gates of heaven and earth in the early days, and now they have merged into the 3 holy sects. 3 saints. Chen Shang only felt that the world in the beginning was even more weird. Qingxing's brothers were killed by Ji Wubai from the Temple of Heaven and Man back then. At that time, Qingxing's body was still pierced in many places by Ji Wubai. It was Chen Shang who made a sudden move to save Qingxing. Chen Shang asked, Palace Master Zhao King, have you heard of Ji Wubai? Palace Master Zhao King nodded and said, of course I've heard of it, he is the most powerful war venerable in the Temple of Heaven and Man. Chen Shang sucked in a breath of air. With Qingxing's current status as an empress, she couldn't even take revenge. It shows that the situation in the world in the early days is not as simple as he imagined, nor is it as harmonious as it seems. The heaven and earth in the beginning of time are so vast, with countless stars buried there, and countless time spaces and universes frozen in the past, so somewhere in such a vast world in the beginning of time, it is very likely that there are many inside stories that Palace Master Zhao King has never been exposed to. Palace Master Zhao King is only 10 years old, and he came to serve as the Palace Master of the Taichu Academy in this place, which shows that the holy city of Taurus is in the Taichu heaven and earth, so it can be said to be a very marginal existence, and naturally it cannot touch the most core things. Chen Shang immediately shuddered. The absolute beginning world is too big, so big that even Palace Master Zhao King can't touch the matters in the core area of a the absolute beginning heaven and earth. Palace Master Zhao King is just leading the Absolute Beginning Academy to actively break through the Absolute Beginning Tao very simply, and is ignorant of many things. The fact that Ji Wubai is still alive means that Qingxing is not the real queen of Taichu heaven and earth. From what Chen Shang learned, Empress Qingxing is supreme and the strongest person in the world in the early days. If she is as powerful as the legends say, even if she doesn't make a move, she can kill Ji Wubai countless times. Brother Shen, I won't say anything about you. The number one enemy of the Three Saints Church. If the disciples of the Three Saints know about it, you will die a miserable death. Don't talk about such things in the future. Palace Master Zhao King exhorted. Chen Shang planned to find an opportunity to contact Ling Shu. He had previously ordered Ling Shu to look for the Temple of Time, the Temple of Heaven and Man, and the Protoss to see if he could find any clues. Palace Master Zhao King, can you talk to the Empress directly? Chen Shang asked. Can I send some messages to her? Palace Master Zhao King shook her head lightly and said, no, I can't contact the Queen until I'm 20, and I have to develop the Golden Bull Holy City, otherwise I will never be able to return to the Queen's side. Chen Shang asked. I heard that there is some stargate that can directly go to the place where the Empress is, right? Palace Master Zhao King nodded and said, I have the blueprint for building the stargate, but the Holy City of Taurus is not yet strong enough to build it. Chen Shang understood that when the Golden Bull Holy City became stronger, Palace Mistress Zhao King could go back and become the Queen's capable helper, otherwise it would be useless for her to go back. Therefore, the Holy City of Taurus is a kind of test and experience for Palace Master Zhao King, and it also shows that the Queen's current situation requires a strong helper. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5236, Primordial Slave. Chen Shang looked at the petite and cute little girl in front of him, and secretly sighed in his heart. Just like Palace Master Zhao King, this Golden Bull Holy City is still a baby, and it is far away from the center of the vortex. If the Stargate is opened, it means that the Holy City of Taurus will enter the battlefield, and it is very likely to be very cruel at that time. Brother Shen, do you really have any enmity with the Sansheng sect? Palace Master Zhao King couldn't help asking. She seemed to be very concerned about this matter, and she was trying to determine something. Well, there is vengeance. Great vengeance. Chen Shang must destroy them, because they are the source of the turmoil. Although the heaven and earth of absolute beginning have suppressed everything now, and time has been completely suppressed by the heaven and earth of absolute beginning, there will no longer be people who fluctuate time randomly, and there will be no ripples of time that will cause all kinds of chaos. However, the Three Saints, that is, the Temple of Time and the others, are the so-called children of time, and they will definitely make a comeback. The heaven and earth in the beginning of time have just been born 20,000 years ago, so it seems that time has been suppressed at present, but what about in the future? No one can guarantee that the Trinity Church will not use time to create chaos again. Palace Master Zhao King said in a low voice. Then you don't want to talk about this matter everywhere, okay? Although, our Empress and the Three Saints sect have a good relationship on the surface, but some things are not as simple as they appear on the surface. Chen Shang immediately saw that Palace Mistress Zhao King knew something, but she couldn't say it. Chen Shang patted her head, and said with a smile, I know. I have fought with him for a long time, and I have a lot of experience. By the way, is there the three sages here? Palace Master Zhao King nodded lightly and said, yes, they are very powerful, so I hope Brother Shen can be more stable and forbearing. The Golden Bull Holy City I am managing now needs their help in building it. As soon as Chen Shang heard it, he thought of something, and said, I heard that there are 3 star demon forces in the holy city of Jinyu, and they raised the price of the pill. Does it have anything to do with the Sansheng sect behind it? If so, the Three Saints sect is playing tricks in the dark, you can't let them be used to. Palace Master Zhao King shook her head lightly and said, I haven't investigated clearly, so I can't mess around. Even if I know that the Three Saints sect is behind the scenes, as long as I don't break the rules, I can't do anything about them. You must use wisdom in this kind of thing. Solve. Chen Shang said. You talk about rules, did they talk about rules? Palace Master Zhao King nodded and said, they also follow the rules. If they don't follow the rules, the Empress will punish them from heaven. Chen Shang thought carefully, He had always doubted the strength of Empress Qingxing. After all, with Qingxing's strength, he shouldn't be in that situation. In other words, Qingxing takes the lead and must follow the rules of Taichu Tiandi and act within the rules, so her power is limited and she cannot use it as she wants. Okay, I won't trouble them. Chen Shang promised Palace Mistress Zhao King, and said again, do you have any way to deal with them? Not yet, but because of your joining, I think we will go much smoother. Palace Master Zhao King said, I will restrain all alchemists from telling you about you, and restrict them from going out. €1. Chen Shang smiled and said, I believe in your wisdom, I can make alchemy with peace of mind. Palace Master Zhao King also smiled slightly at Chen Shang, and said, Brother Shen, you are so kind, I hope you can stay in the holy city of Jinyu forever. I'm going to stay here for a while. Chen Shang has no place to go now. If he leaves the Taurus continent, he doesn't know when he will meet another continent. The world in the beginning is too big, it would be very tiring for him to walk out, and it would be a waste of time. On the surface, Chen Shang promised not to trouble the Sanshangjiao, but if he really didn't look for it, then he would not be Chen Shang. He returned to his lodgings and began to think. At this time someone knocked on the door. Chen Shang went to open the door, and saw 4 tall, beautiful women in white clothes walking in. Some of them have gentle smiles on their faces, some have silky eyes, some are as cold as ice, and some are smiling politely. These 4 beauties all look exactly the same, but they have very different personalities. Granny An also came over at this time, and said with a smile, Senior Shen, they are human but not human. From now on, they all belong to you, but they don't belong to you. Chen Shang frowned and said, Grandma An, don't tell me riddles. Granny An said, they were created by our Taichu Academy, and they are called Taichu Saint Slaves. So they are not real people, but they are no different from real people. They also have their own thoughts and souls. Chen Shang asked, they belong to me, but they don't belong to me, what does that mean? Granny An smiled and said, it was given to seniors by Palace Master Zhao King, so they belong to seniors. Although they are holy slaves in the beginning, we also respect their personality, so unless they recognize you as their own master, you can't be completely own them. Chen Shang understood, nodded and said, thank Palace Master Zhao King for me, such precious things should be kept in the Taichu Academy, they are of great help to the Taichu Academy, and I don't need them. They are very beautiful, but Chen Shang has no shortage of beauties. The 1,000 purgatory saintesses in the Immortal War Profound Demon Tower are all very beautiful, and if they continue to practice, they will become very strong. Granny An was stunned, because she knew very well the value of the saint slaves of the Absolute Beginning. She had been in the Academy of Absolute Beginning for so many years, but she couldn't get one. Chen Shang got 4 at once, but refused. Of course, she is not jealous of Chen Shang, because this is what Chen Shang deserves. Just relying on Chen Shang to guide them in alchemy, can improve the overall level of alchemy in Taichu Academy, this cannot be measured by value. Granny An said, they can protect you and serve you. If you can get their approval, they are your female slaves, and you can do anything to them. Chen Shang shook his head and said, I don't need it. Palace Master Zhao King's voice suddenly came, and said softly, Brother Shen, please accept it, please. Chen Shang sighed, he could only accept it. Granny An also heaved a sigh of relief, and then left. Sister Xiaojing smiled and said, Brother, you have been manipulated by that little girl. She is watching you to prevent you from messing around. Chen Shang was planning to have a friendly exchange with the 3 sacred sect just now, but he didn't expect that Palace Master Zhao King would send 4 followers to him, that's why he kept rejecting these 4 beautiful slaves from the beginning of time. What's your name? Chen Shang asked. Mr. Shen, we don't have a name. Mr. Shen can call us whatever you want. But the premise is that the name you choose for us must have a minimum of respect. The very gentle woman smiled softly. You can't call us bitch, ****** or something. Chen Shang rubbed his forehead, even asked him to take the name, it was too troublesome to give him these primordial saint slaves. He just waved his hand, then lay on the chair, looked out from the balcony, thinking about how to get rid of them, and then went to the 3 saints to have an in-depth exchange. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5237, Scarlet Medicine Field. Chen Shang got up and walked towards the room, and then the 4 holy slaves followed closely behind. Chen Shang came to the door of the room, turned around, and said, I want to rest, you guys go do your own things. Mr. Shen, the Palace Lord has ordered us to stay close to you and be by your side at all times. If you want to rest and sleep, we will watch beside you. The gentle woman spoke softly, with a sweet voice, looking at Chen Shang with a smile. No need, I'm not used to it with you guys by my side. Chen Shang hastily refused. Mr. Shen, if you want to rest, you can sleep on my lap, so that we can help you relax your whole body and ensure that you can sleep comfortably. The woman smiled softly and sweetly. Chen Shang hastily waved his hands and said, I don't have this habit. You are by my side, it will affect my rest. I usually rest while cultivating, you can't disturb me. Several holy slaves in the beginning looked at each other, as if they were discussing something secretly, and then they could only nod. The woman said, Mr. Shen, you haven't given us a name yet. We have never had a name. Now that we have our own master, we also hope to have a name. Chen Shang smiled and said, don't be in a hurry, wait for me to rest, and then think about it. Since it's your name, then I must think about it with my heart. He opened the door and walked into the room, and asked again, by the way, has Palace Mistress Zhao Qing told you about me? They all shook their heads. Palace Mistress Zhao Qing didn't tell them about Chen Zhang's alchemist. Then you recognize me as master now, so do you listen to Palace Master Zhao Qing, or to me? Chen Shang asked. We are currently listening to the Palace Lord. Although the Palace Lord sent us to you, we have a transitional period with you. If we can't adapt during the transitional period, we can leave you. The gentle woman smiled lightly and said, Mr. Shen, please cherish us well. Chen Shang spread his hands and said with a smile, I'm not used to being served by female slaves, I just want to get you away. After speaking, he closed the door and sat on the bed. Sister Jing, what is the strength of those women? Chen Shang has just cultivated the divine beat of absolute beginning, and he is considered very weak in the absolute beginning heaven and earth. Their cultivation bases are much higher than yours, but their souls are definitely not as strong as yours. Sister Xiaojing said, if you want to run out without telling them, there is no problem. Leave it to me. Chen Shang believed in Sister Xiaojing, and then released the magic mirror of 6 paths. Sister Xiaojing first imprinted the entire room in the mirror through the divine mirror of 6 paths, and then released an identical illusion through the divine mirror of 6 paths, and there was also Chen Shang on the bed. And she also asked Chen Shang to draw out a strand of soul silk, which can be used to give the illusory Chen Shang who ran out of the mirror a seat, and can be used to deal with the 4 primordial slaves. If you open the door from the outside, you can see a fake Chen Shang sitting on the bed. After someone enters the room, Chen Shang on the bed will also move in conjunction with the surrounding phantoms, which can fool others. Sister Xiaojing arranged all this through the divine mirror of 6 paths, and Chen Shang immediately became invisible, and then asked the fake Chen Shang to open the door. After opening the door, Chen Shang was already invisible, quietly ran into the room, and quickly walked to the balcony. After opening the door, the fake Chen Shang said to the 4 girls outside, 4 girls, I want to practice in seclusion for a while, I hope you don't disturb me. They all nodded in agreement. And the real Chen Shang has already climbed down from the balcony. From the outside, the Taichu Academy Palace looks like a round star falling on the ground. The interior is divided into many floors, and each suite also has windows and stands. Chen Shang climbed down from the top very smoothly, and did not trigger any enchantment. Sister Xiaojing said, Brother, Palace Mistress Zhao Qing is a little girl, even though she is only 10 years old, she is actually very ghostly. Those 4 female slaves are just here to keep an eye on you and not let you mess around. Chen Shang ran out quietly. He really wanted to communicate with the 3 saints. He wanted to know what the Temple of Time, the Temple of Heaven and Man and the Star Spirit race were doing. Chen Shang ran out from the Taichu Academy, changed his appearance to make himself look like a middle-aged man, and then asked about the 3 saints sect on the way. In fact, there is no need to ask, because the 3 saints have 3 huge towers and temples here, and they are so high that they can be seen from a distance. The towers of the Temple of Time are resplendent and resplendent, the towers of the Temple of Heaven and Man are black, and the towers of the Protoss race are white. The 3 towers are all built in one place, neatly arranged in a triangle. Seeing the things in the Temple of Time, Chen Shang wanted to smash them to pieces, but because he was in the Taichu Academy, it was not convenient for him to do so, and his current cultivation was still very low. Chen Shang came to the outside of the 3 pagodas of the Sanshengjiao. These 3 pagodas were built in a very spacious villa with high and thick walls. It was difficult for Chen Shang to get in, but he was able to detect the internal structure of the 3 saints sect through the magic mirror of 6 paths. Sister Xiaojing said, "Brother, there is a big underground palace under the Sanshengjiao. Although there are many people in the three towers, I feel that they are mainly in the underground palace because the people in the underground palace are obviously much stronger." Chen Shang thought for a while, then tried to draw out a wisp of soul, then closed his eyes, letting this wisp of soul fly out. His soul is far superior to the people here, so even if his soul wanders out, he will not be discovered. His soul easily passed through the earth and entered the underground palace. The underground palace is very bright and has many layers, each layer is a kind of reddish-brown soil. It's blood. There is a lot of blood in the soil. Chen Shang was very shocked, because he also saw many small medicine seedlings planted in the soil. Sister Xiaojing also followed Chen Zhang's example and released her own soul. Her ray of soul is also very strong, so now she can also probe below. Sister Mirror, can what you see be recorded in the mirror? Chen Shang asked. Yes. Sister Xiaojing nodded. There are hundreds of floors under the entire villa where the Sanshengjiao is located, and each floor is very spacious, mainly used to grow medicinal materials. Those medicinal materials can grow rapidly, and the fertilizer is a lot of flesh and blood. I don't know where they got the flesh and blood. It is obviously human flesh and blood. Chen Shang and Xiaojing's younger sister were very angry in their hearts, because they also planted medicinal materials, but they had never seen such a large amount of flesh and blood planted. How many people did they kill? Where did these people come from? Sister Xiaojing said solemnly. These guys, in order to control the price of elixir in the whole city, they did such a thing. There are 3-star human and star monster forces who control most of the magic medicines and pills in the city, so they crazily raise the price, plus they have a large number of pill pharmacists in their hands. Taichu Shuigong can't change all this at all. Chen Shang scolded in a low voice. This group of guys, have they broken the rules? Shouldn't Taichu Academy do something? I have to let Taichu Academy know. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5238, Deep Water. Chen Shang didn't go to communicate with the people of the Three Sacred Sect, because he found that the underground flesh medicine field was already shocked, so he left in a hurry and returned to the Taichu Academy. When he went back, the 4 primordial saint slaves were all sitting quietly in the hall, and they were absorbing the power of the primordial heaven and earth to practice. Chen Shang controlled the fake him in the room to come out and open the door, and then return to the room by himself. Sister Jing, do you think I should tell Palace Master Zhao King about the Sansheng sect? Chen Shang was hesitating. If he told Palace Mistress Zhao King, the fact that he ran out to find the Three Sacred Sect would be exposed. Sister Xiaojing said, Brother, although Palace Master Zhao King is a little girl in her teens, she is not stupid. I think she should already know about this kind of thing, but there is nothing she can do about it. Chen Shang was stunned, thinking carefully. There is indeed this possibility. Palace Mistress Xiaoqing said to Chen Shang that the Three Saints sect is worthy of respect, but she kept telling him not to go to the Three Saints sect. She must know what is the inside story. It's just not convenient to say it directly. After all, the Three Saints sect has a certain prestige in the world of Taichu. Chen Shang sighed. There are 4 followers outside, staring at me to death. They will definitely restrict me from going out. What should I do? Sister Xiaojing smiled coquettishly. Brother, show off your housekeeping skills, capture their hearts, make them fall in love with you, and then you will be whatever you say. The problem of slow update of new chapters has finally been solved on the app that can change the source. Download the wanyuanapp.com source change app here, and view the latest chapters of this book on multiple sites at the same time. €1. Chen Shang waved his hand and said, they are the holy slaves in the beginning, not real people. They were all created. When creating them, in order to make them more loyal, they must have tampered with their souls, and treated them take control of their emotions. Chen Shang is very clear about this kind of thing. They don't have any lust, only loyalty and responsibility. If you give them too much emotion, then they won't be able to do what they are supposed to do. The holy slaves in the beginning were meant to obey orders, and they fell in love with others casually, so why were they created? Sister Xiaojing smiled and said, they don't have emotions, so give them emotions. It shouldn't be difficult for you. Chen Shang shook his head. His current cultivation level is not as high as those 4 female saint slaves. He can't act recklessly. Palace Master Zhao King must have secretly fought with the 3 sages. I don't need to worry about this kind of thing for the time being. The 3 saints should also know that the Palace Master is the Queen's person, and they will definitely not go too far. Chen Shang closed his eyes, and remembered that the underground medicine fields of the Sansheng sect were all kinds of indistinct flesh and blood. All kinds of strong medicine seedlings grew in the ***** soil, and sometimes many broken limbs and even heads could be seen, and eyes. He has seen many **** scenes like this, but they were all on the battlefield, and they were used to grow medicinal materials, and finally refined into pills for people to eat, which made him a little unacceptable. He has often planted medicines and made alchemy for many years. For him, the process of planting medicinal materials should be a kind of enjoyment and a very beautiful experience. The beautiful artistic conception of planting medicinal herbs. Chen Shang, who was thinking about this matter in the room, suddenly heard a little girl humming from outside the door. La 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 la. Palace Mistress Xiao Qing was humming. Meet the Palace Master. The 4 female saint slaves hurriedly saluted respectfully. Beautiful ladies and sisters, step back first. Palace Master Zhao King said with a smile. Yes. The female saint slave was very respectful to Palace Master Zhao King, and hurriedly left. Palace Master Zhao King was at Chen Zhang's door, and softly shouted, Brother Shen, are you living comfortably? How are the 4 young ladies serving you? Are you satisfied with them? Chen Shang responded, It's okay. I'm not used to being served by others. Palace Master Zhao King said with a smile, Brother Shen, you are so smart, you must know that I sent them to watch over you and not let you go out to mess around. So if they can't serve you well, please forgive me, because they don't care about you. Euro is not designed to serve people. Euro. Chen Shang opened the door and came out. Palace Master Zhao King asked, Brother Shen, you went out just now, where did you go? Palace Mistress Zhao King was wearing a white dress. This little girl said she was in her teens, but she looked very old-fashioned at the moment. Chen Shang looked at her childlike and innocent face, and suddenly realized that he couldn't see through this little girl. When she was in that hall before, this little girl really looked like a very ignorant little girl, and Chen Shang was also deceived at that time. Chen Shang said, I have never gone out before. Palace Master Zhao King said with a grin, You're out. Brother Shen, I underestimated you. I didn't expect that you are also very good in other aspects besides the alchemy. Chen Shang sat on the chair and didn't say anything else, he just asked, I don't want those 4 female saint slaves, I can do it alone. I gave it to Brother Shen. Could it be that you don't want it because you can't do anything to them? Palace Mistress Zhao King laughed. Little girl, how old are you? Chen Shang asked with a smile, You are definitely more than 10 years old. Palace Master Zhao King said with a smile, He is 10 years old, and will always be 10 years old. Only now did Chen Shang realize that he had been deceived by the little girl in front of him, and now he also understood that being the Palace Master of Taichu Academy Palace is not a simple role. Chen Shang took a deep breath and stopped talking. Palace Master Zhao King said, Brother Shen, can you tell me where you went? I didn't track you down, so I'm curious. I went to the Sanshengjiao Villa, I didn't bother to find them. I just walked around outside, and then found that they have many floors underground, very spacious, and they use many dismembered fresh corpses to grow medicinal materials. Chen Shang told Palace Master Zhao King everything he had seen and heard, and then stared at Palace Master Zhao King's little face. Palace Mistress Zhao King took a sip of her tea, her face was calm, and she was not surprised at all. Seeing that Palace Master Zhao King was very calm, Chen Shang asked, Does Taichu Shuigong not care about it? Palace Master Zhao King shook her head lightly and said, I can't control it, because it is within the rules. The 4 created slaves of the beginning of the universe you have seen before, they are all living flesh and blood. When you see those flesh and blood, it is the 3 saints were created and then killed. Chen Shang didn't think about it, he was very surprised, and asked, Is it easy to create people? Kill them casually and use them as fertilizer. Palace Master Zhao King nodded and said, Yes, it's very easy. This is because of the power of heaven and earth in the beginning. The power of heaven and earth in the beginning is itself transformed by the power of creation. With this power, the Sanshengjiao can create more quickly, people. Chen Shang was silent. It turns out that Palace Master Zhao King knows everything, and knows more than him. If you want to stop them from doing this, you can only think of better methods than theirs to grow medicinal materials, and force them to give up this ***** and barbaric method. Palace Master Zhao King said, Because the 3 saints can't be destroyed, it can't be destroyed. We can't kill them, so we can only do this, Euro. After she finished speaking, she looked at Chen Shang and said, "Brother Shen, is there anything you can do?" Chen Shang shook his head and said, "No, I only know how to make alchemy." He has a way, but Palace Mistress Zhao King has concealed something from him and is not frank enough, so he doesn't want to help. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5239, Under the School. Palace Master Zhao King could also see that Chen Shang had a solution, and when she saw that Chen Shang said no, she smiled and said, "Is the female saint slave I gave you not good enough? Or, I will exchange some female saints for you slave, dedicated to serving you. But, if you want to do shameful things to them, you can't do it unless they are willing." Chen Shang shook his head and said, "I don't want it, let those four go away too. Otherwise, I won't help you alchemy." Chen Zhang's attitude this time is very firm, he doesn't need any female saint slaves at all right now, but Palace Mistress Zhao King thinks that he is very hungry, which makes him very speechless. "Brother Shen, it seems that I misunderstood you. I thought you liked beauties very much, and you gave me the impression that you were a big carrot." Palace Master Zhao King patted her forehead and said with a smile, "I'm sorry, I think of you too badly, don't blame me, who told you to give others the feeling of a little villain." Quote. Chen Shang is now more certain that Palace Mistress Xiao Qing is not 10 years old at all, she knows everything, how could she be a child? Chen Shang curled his lips and said, "Palace Master Zhao King, your routine is useless to me. If you want to get my help, you'd better be honest. I can't feel any sincerity when I'm here with you." Palace Mistress Xiao Qing concealed many things from him, and even sent someone to watch him. This was something Chen Shang was very upset about. Palace Master Zhao King said, "Brother Shen, what do you want to know?" Chen Shang asked, "Tell me your age first. And your real appearance is definitely not a little girl. You use the appearance of a little girl just to confuse people and let people relax their vigilance against you, right?" Palace Master Zhao King said, "I am in my 30s. My real body is in the Taichu Academy. Hidden in an underground palace, I am practicing in seclusion. I have to practice every moment, and then I control the clone outside. Activities, used to manage Taichu Academy." Chen Shang was satisfied with her answer, at least he knew what was going on with this palace master. Palace Master Zhao King said with a smile, "Brother Shen, I didn't actually lie to you, my avatar is indeed 10 years old." Chen Shang asked, "How many clones do you have?" Palace Master Zhao King said, "Many, most of the girls in this Taichu Academy are basically my avatars. There are two types of avatars, one is directly controlled by me, and their consciousness and soul are the same as those of me. I am connected. The other is to have an independent soul and independent personality, like the 4 female holy slaves I gave you before, they are all my clones." Speaking of the 4 female holy slaves, Palace Master Zhao King shook her head and smiled, "It's a pity, Brother Shen despises them and doesn't want them. Of course, although she has an independent personality and independent soul, I can still control them and influence them, can read their memories." Chen Shang was also very surprised when he learned that the 4 female saint slaves were clones of Palace Master Zhao King. He also understood why she knew that he had run out before. Palace Master Zhao King must have found something wrong in their memories, so he was sure of. "Since they are your avatars, then I will accept them." Chen Shang suddenly changed his mind, after all, he is the avatar of a palace lord, so don't take them for nothing. Palace Master Zhao King said with a smile, "Brother Shen, why did you change your mind when you found out that they were my avatars? I'm curious." Chen Shang smiled and said, "I'm not interested in ordinary women, but I am interested in Palace Mistress Zhao King's avatar." Palace Mistress Zhao King snorted softly, "Bastard." Chen Shang sat down and stretched his legs, and said, "I can help you fight against the 3 Saints sect, and control the price of pills in the whole city. But the premise is, what can I get in return? Don't think that you can do it with a few beautiful skins. Do you think it is possible for me to do this?" Palace Master Zhao King smiled lightly and said, "Of course it's impossible. I've said it all. I gave those 4 female holy slaves to Brother Shen as a gift. But they are all my avatars, and they are somewhat related to me. I can also know their thoughts, can you rest assured if you stay by your side?" Chen Shang said, "As long as it is the avatar of Palace Mistress Zhao King, then I can rest assured." Palace Master Zhao King nodded and said, "Tell me, how can you help me fight against the 3 saints? They grow medicinal materials too fast, and I lag behind them in this respect. Then there is alchemy, although you joined, but our alchemy is still too slow, and most alchemists worship the 3 saints very much, and are willing to serve them. You don't have to worry about planting medicinal materials. I have a solution, but the premise is that you have enough people. Chen Shang said. They create a large number of people and then smash them to use as fertilizer, and then create them again. Broken, this process will definitely cost €1. Palace Master Zhao King said. Even if the cost is high, the effect is very good, and a large amount of medicinal materials can be obtained quickly. In addition, they have taken away a large number of alchemists. We cannot compete at all. We need a large amount of medicinal materials at low cost to compete. To beat them, the most important thing is that we don't have enough alchemists. Chen Shang said. I said that we need a large number of people, do you have them? And they must be trustworthy, very trustworthy, otherwise, once the secret is leaked, it will cause a great loss to us. Palace Master Zhao King nodded and said, I will use all my avatars, right? The avatars I created can be completely kept secret. Like the 4 female saint slaves I gave you before, their souls are have my brand and always be true to me. Chen Shang asked curiously, Sister Zhao King, how many clones do you have? Palace Master Zhao King said, currently there are only 3,000. If necessary, I can create them quickly. It is not a problem to get a clone of 10 or 20,000. Chen Shang was startled, is the avatar so worthless? 10 or 20,000 can be created casually. Seeing Chen Zhang's surprised look, Palace Mistress Xiao Qing smiled and said, Brother Shen, creating clones is my talent. Moreover, the clones I created, they can also create clones, and this is how I quickly obtained clones. €1. Chen Shang felt more and more that this method was very familiar. The Heavenly Mother sages were like this back then. After having clones, the clones created their own clones, how similar it was. In view of the general environment, this site may be closed at any time. Please move to the permanent source replacement app, oneyuanapp.com as soon as possible. The difference is that Palace Mistress Zhao King can create clones faster, which seems to be an ability that every Palace Mistress possesses. Chen Shang said, did the 3 saints teach them to do the same? Palace Mistress Zhao King shook her head and said, their methods are different from mine. The avatars they create are all deformed, with 3 heads and 6 arms, in strange shapes, and then smashed into pieces. Chen Shang nodded, and said, since they are all your avatars, it will be easier to handle. Palace Master Zhao King sighed softly, it's because I have too many clones that my cultivation has slowed down. We, Palace Masters, need a large number of clones in order to manage the Taichu Academy Palace, and we also need to control a large number of clones. Chen Shang said, and then there is a need for a large space. Planting medicinal materials always needs a place, right? And it also needs a lot of energy, can you provide it? Palace Master Zhao King nodded and said, no problem, there is a passage under the Taichu School Palace, which can directly lead to the underground Taurus planet. There is a large space in the core of Taurus Star, which is all mine. World Defying Dan God Chapter 5240, Queen's Servant. After Chen Shang heard it, he was secretly surprised. What made him most incomprehensible was that the Taichu Academy could still be suppressed by the 3 Saints sect even though there was such a place, what a waste. Seeing the contempt in Chen Zhang's eyes, Palace Mistress Xiao Qing pouted and said, Brother Shen, what kind of eyes are you? Chen Shang laughed and said, to be honest, you are too good for nothing. You have mastered the passage to the underground star core, you can enter the space inside the star core, but you were all beaten up by the 3 sacred sect, ha ha ha. Quote. Chen Shang also mercilessly laughed and mocked, before Palace Master Zhao King sent 4 female saint slaves to watch over, which made him very upset, and now it can be regarded as revenge. In view of the general environment, this site may be closed at any time. Please move to the permanent source replacement app, oneyuanapp.com as soon as possible. Palace Master Zhao King pursed her lips slightly, and muttered, Brother Shen, do you think the 3 Saints sect is easy to deal with? To be honest, I don't believe that you can help us turn the situation around. I once asked the Imperial Palace for instructions, and the courtiers around the Queen also I called na Euro T give any good solution, saying that they are researching, and told me to endure it again, be patient and so on. €1. Chen Shang suppressed a smile and said, the courtiers around the Empress are also useless, right? The dignified Empress of the primordial world, why is she surrounded by idiots? Palace Master Zhao King snorted, her small face was full of resentment, and said, you are not allowed to speak ill of the Queen, the courtiers around her are not weak. Do you know, in ancient times, there was a very powerful force, it's called the Temple of 100 Flowers. The courtiers around the queen are all from the Temple of 100 Flowers. When I see those courtiers next time, I will tell them and see how they deal with you. When Chen Shang heard this, he was stunned. The 100 Flowers Temple is actually next to Queen Qingxing, and it was reused by the Sunny Star Queen. Now he finally understands why Palace Mistress Zhao Qing's avatar technique is so familiar, and the alchemy technique they mastered is also the one he pioneered back then. Palace Master Zhao Qing laughed and said, "Brother Shen, it seems that you have also heard of the power of the 100 Flowers Temple. Then you know how to be afraid now. I will tell them when the time comes, you just wait to be cleaned up by them." It can be said that the alchemy techniques of the absolute beginning heaven and earth are all inherited from the 100 Flowers Temple, as well as various techniques of refining weapons and making talismans. Chen Shang took a deep breath and said, "Can you contact those courtiers? Can you take me to meet them?" Palace Master Zhao Qing frowned slightly and said, "Brother Shen, do you know them? You seem to be in a hurry." "I'm sorry, but I keep in touch with them on a regular basis. It's even more difficult to see them. You can build a Stargate, but you don't have that strength at all right now. Chen Shang thought about it. Even the 100 Flowers Temple really couldn't help Palace Mistress Zhao Qing change the situation here, because it was too far away, they couldn't help at all. "Brother Shen, if you know them, let me tell them that you once laughed at them as idiots and trash." Palace Mistress Zhao Qing said with a smirk. "Little girl, I will help you turn the situation around. But you have to promise me that when you contact them next time, I must be by your side." Chen Shang asked, "By the way, what is the name of the courtier who is in contact with you? Do you know?" Palace Master Zhao Qing said, "The name is Hua Shangyu, do you know her?" Of course Chen Shang knew her. It can be said that he was very familiar with her. He nodded and said, "I know her." Palace Master Zhao Qing hurriedly asked, "Then what is your relationship with her?" "Friends." Chen Shang shook his head and said, "No, the relationship between me and her is very pure, so pure that there is no distinction between each other. Every time we meet, we can't wait to merge." Palace Mistress Zhao Qing rolled her eyes and said, "Cut, bragging. All right, help me clean up the mess here. After the Stargate is built, you will see her soon." "Are you fooling me? I always feel that it's not so easy to go to the Empress's palace." Chen Shang rubbed his chin, looking suspiciously at Palace Master Zhao Qing. "Don't worry about these details. Anyway, you helped me, and I won't treat you badly. If you don't help me, it will be even more difficult for you to go to the Imperial City." Palace Master Zhao Qing waved. "Follow me quickly. Come, let me take you to the inner core space of the underground stars." Chen Shang immediately followed her, came to a room, and found that there was a small teleportation array here, not a channel leading to the inner core, but a way of teleportation. Teleportation consumes a lot of energy. Fortunately, it consumes the energy of the stars, so it doesn't matter. Palace Master Zhao Qing said, "I heard that in ancient times, you could teleport casually, right? Forget it. If it's too far away, it won't work." Chen Shang said, "Before the 9 realms of Tianghu Purgatory, cross-domain teleportation was very difficult, mainly because it was too far away. Today's Taichu heaven and earth is much larger than the original 9 regions, and the space is more solid, because time is suppressed, and space is more difficult to break through. Only those giant stargates can be built to carry out long-distance transmission." Palace Master Zhao Qing brought Chen Shang to the underground star core space. This place is barren, the ground is covered with very solid crystals, and there is strong light all around. They are in the core space, all materials are core, and they are very hot. After Chen Shang came in, he was sweating profusely. Palace Mistress Zhao Qing waved her hand and released a cold shield to cover him, and he felt much more comfortable. Palace Master Zhao Qing said, "See, this is the inner core space. It is very difficult to grow medicinal materials in this environment. Anyway, we can't do it. No one in the whole world of Aboriginal time can do it. The courtiers around the queen are resourceful, and they can do it too, not?" Chen Shang asked, "Then isn't this star a waste?" Palace Master Zhao Qing said, "The construction of the Stargate is built here, so now you think it is difficult to build a Stargate?" Chen Shang took a deep breath. The Stargate is actually going to be built here. He is also aware of a problem now, that is, it is difficult to build a Stargate. "Are there many Stargates in the absolute beginning heaven and earth?" Chen Shang asked. "Not many, very few. It's pitifully small, not 1 in a million. The main reason is that most of the palace masters didn't help to build it. Palace Master Zhao King shook her head and said, and even if the Stargate is built, it will take many years to transmit. In short, the process is very complicated. Chen Shang sighed. Okay. Let's run the Golden Bull Holy City first. Palace Master Zhao King asked. Then do you still plan to grow medicinal materials here? If you can do it, we hope that the Three Saints sect will not be able to get along here. Chen Shang said. If you are not bragging and you have enough clones, then there is no problem. Palace Master Zhao King frowned and said, the courtiers around the Empress have said that only a few very powerful magic medicines can grow in this environment and can withstand the heat. And the medicines we mainly sell are not the supernatural medicines. A powerful magic medicine. Chen Shang smiled and said, I have a solution. As long as your avatar is in place, I will let you know how powerful I am. Do you like this site? Donate here.